sure you're ready?
I think so.
Okay, because we're starting. Wait, where'd you go? Oh, okay. Hello, good sunny day, everybody. It is your Prince of the Sun, Solaris here. Dab. And with me, I have my good friend who's named
Azerad. That's my introduction.
Sunny D's got the official sponsor. There's no official sponsor, I'm sorry. Do you think I could get Sunny D to sponsor me?
Are they still big?
Are they still big? What do you mean, are they still? Sunny D still exists.
I don't see it in stores too often, but maybe. Maybe in your neck of the woods.
Your neck of the woods? That's crazy. I can't. I'm trying to get volume. I'm trying to get some background music. It's too loud. How am I how do I go lower than 1%? Volume mixer. That's how I make it go lower than 1%. Wait, it's already at... I fixed it. I don't drink Sunny D. Tastes terrible. I think it's just orange juice, right?
It's not just orange juice, but it's basically just orange juice.
It's also pronounced Sunny Delight. Tevin, I know who's not getting a sponsorship. You're not gonna be getting a sponsorship with attitude like that, okay, Tevin? Anyway, this is Azerad. He's portrayed by an inverted color image that I got in Irastoya because he's indecisive. Poke offered to draw you a character, and you didn't even say anything.
It's a big thing to ask. I gotta think about it.
Yeah, you gotta think about it. You gotta think about design. But so far, but right now we just have this
Placeholder.
Chinibio guy. Chinibio guy. Yeah, he has white hair. You have white hair in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's gone gray. He's gone
That's
gray.
a picture of me.
That's an actual photograph of me. What stock image? Mixed a bottle perfume into orange juice. Where's the downside? Anyway, I'm hot. How's it going, bud? What's up, buddy? How you been?
I've been all right.
Fancy seeing you here. What?
Do you come here often?
To this, speaking of stock effects, stock images, we also have this, Japanese house at nighttime background. So I couldn't think of any better thing to have for Bleach. Cause like, Bleach does have like distinctive areas, but this first art just kind of takes place in Japan. There's like, a bridge. I don't know. There's no like notable locations from this first, area. Azerad lives. I can't believe it. I can't believe it either. I thought he was dead, but I thought we sent him.
It's the comeback.
I thought we sent his ass to the Soul Society. But no, hold on. We're gonna move this over. Okay. I like the star of David on Azerad's hand. I don't think that was not intentional, but sure, go ahead. Whatever you say, buddy.
It does kind of look like that, huh?
There you go. So, if you don't, what do you want to tell the young folks about yourself who've never seen you before? Any background you want to give them?
Where
are you from?
From Canada.
from Canada, also known as Israel.
Yeah, same thing.
It's a city in Canada, Israel.
Exactly. There we go. Big fan of anime. Huge fan of anime, in fact.
I was gonna say, yeah. Did you get married yet? You can't ask someone that question out of the blue like that.
Yes, you can, and I'll answer that. Yes.
What?
Just legally, mostly for
I thought you were gonna invite me to your wedding.
The wedding didn't happen yet.
You
it was more just It's so we don't get deported. That's
Uh,
the biggest thing. And so I can get a visa to work and help out. But wedding's coming hopefully next year. Sometime next year, we're going to have a big, big wedding.
Kekko no omedetou gozaimasu.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, not important. He's one of those sex havers, you know what I mean, dog? I can't relate.
Now, listen, let's not make assumptions.
Listen, let's not jump to conclusions here. I'm in this solely for the green card.
No.
What? Sex havers here? No. Move along, officer. What? Move along, officer. Nothing to see here. What were we talking about?
Average otaku nerd.
Yeah, I was gonna say, look at him. Look at him. He's just in it solely for the green card. Anyway, what were we saying? Oh yeah, yeah. Release. So wasting the first 20 minutes of the stream, as is tradition at this point, honestly. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I'm usually the big anime nerd out of my friend group. But Azerad is the one exception. He probably somewhat outranks me. I don't know.
I would like to think so. But...
Yeah, the thing about Azerad is that like I like watch a lot. I think I've seen more anime than him, but he's experienced more of the otaku culture. If that makes sense. Like he plays like video games and visual novels and like reads manga and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely haven't watched as much as you. I've definitely slowed down on watching. I don't really watch seasonal anime like that anymore, but I do read different mangas. I've read a few light novels here and there. I read a lot of visual novels.
Yeah, you play.
And obviously, I played like doujin games.
Play video games. You play video games, i.e., books on paper. Although there are some visual novels that have like mini games. Like Little Busters has like a baseball mini game in it.
It even has a little RPG battling game.
Little Busters?
Actually, Little Busters. When you like go into those fights, and you bring items.
I might have not played that far. Little Busters got an English release, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And by English release, I mean the Japanese version has an English translation, but you still have to spend like $100 to import it. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We like anime, we like manga, we like Japan, period. And today we are talking about Bleach. So yeah, Bleach was I watched anime before, like Pokemon and like Naruto on TV or whatever. But like Bleach was like the first series that I got like super hardcore into. So it has a very special place in my heart. Azerad, I think, on the other hand, just got into it recently.
Yeah, I shunned Bleach many years. Not interested in it.
What do you mean shun?
I mean, I always looked at it. I'm like, it doesn't look cool. It doesn't look like my thing.
I don't know.
I wasn't interested.
Out of all the complaints with Bleach, I don't understand. It doesn't look cool. It's got effing samurai ghosts fighting evil ghosts.
I know, and that's why I changed last year. Or I want to say, if you just look at whenever one of the PVs for the new series came out, around that same time is when I said, okay, let's actually go through the whole show. And I did pretty recently. I think I finished it a few months ago, about a year ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and I surprisingly really enjoyed it.
Cause it's great. It's a great series. Listen, I'm not just saying that because like, I have nostalgia for it, so that's why I like it. Nah. I will actually say during this rewatch, we're currently discussing the. I still can't get over sex havers. You have been missing the streams, Yish. That is a meme. Is that one Sonic video? No further context will be supplemented. Anyway. Yeah, Bleach. We're talking about Bleach episode 1 to 17. So if you don't know, that's basically like most of the first arc. It's not quite the first arc, but it goes all the way to like Bleach gets his Soul Reaper powers. They introduce all the characters. He fights a fish, and then he dies. It basically goes up to the point where like Rukia gets kidnapped and he dies. That's not necessarily like where like things like the wiki separate seasons, but I think that was the most appropriate stopping point.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. It's kind of crazy that Ichigo dies. The episode is literally called Ichigo Dies.
Yeah, the episode is literally Ichigo dies. So, you know, a good stopping point. But yeah, what I was saying earlier is it's not just nostalgia why I like Bleach, because I was actually surprised that I was surprised of like how much I enjoyed this. I think I enjoyed this arc more now than I did before, because I remember this arc like I mean, all of Bleach is good, but like I just remember this arc being like the preamble before it gets into like the Soul Society arc, and that's like the arc that everyone remembers. But like rewatching this arc, like it has a lot of interesting and cool things about it.
Yeah, I think this arc does a much better job than I initially gave it credit for introducing the characters. Specifically, I guess to start with episode 1. I love Ichigo in episode 1. I really, really, really do. He's so much more different than his contemporary other shonen main characters. So
yeah, I agree. Like Ichigo, like, I mean, I don't know. He's kind of like, he's weirdly different, but also kind of like retro because he's one of those like, you know, gangster guys. But he has a good heart, and that's an archetype I really enjoy. Because literally in the first episode, he's beating up some random dudes, and then you find out, oh, it's because they knocked over like a memorial for like a little girl who died. He's like, oh, there you go. That gives you all the context that you need for Ichigo's like character. Like the base of Ichigo's character is like, yeah, he's a punk, he's a brat, he's a little dumb little baby man.
He's a bad boy.
He's kind of a bad boy, but he has a good heart, you know? We find out the reason that he's mostly a punk is because he got bullied for his hair color. Which like he's not the only one with weird hair color, or he may also has like orange hair. We just not.
Nobody thinks she's a delinquent.
We just gonna ignore that. He's a lovable delinquent, yeah. Which was like a character archetype, like back in like shonen manga, like in the like 80s, like JoJo, stuff like that.
Yeah, Jotaro was definitely one of the delinquents. Also one of the main characters from Great Teacher Onizuka.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or Hime also did get bullied. I forgot. She was like, "Oh yeah, I cut my hair short because they bullied me, but now I won't cut my hair short." And that's that character development.
She's developed.
Anyway, we're talking about the first episode. You see at the top here, I have topics. I've separated up into some topics, but like just for the intro and like the first episode. Yeah, the first episode is like, I don't know why I rewatched this first episode like when I first got into the series like 100 times for some reason. I don't know why. I was just like, I want to watch a random episode of Bleach. I guess I'll just watch the first episode. So I just ended up watching the first episode a bunch. I have no idea.
It's that good?
Oh yeah, also for context, for this rewatch, I'm watching the English dub version, but I have seen both versions. And both versions are great. Because you listen. I'm usually a dub hater, you know. Right before the stream, we were both talking crap about Funimation. So listen. I definitely am not a dub lover, but there are some dubs that are good, and this is definitely one of them.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out I watched Bleach dubbed and enjoyed it a lot. I'm really not a big dub fan. Maybe what I used to be when I was younger, but nowadays I can read.
I can read. I can read and listen at the same time.
But I go out of my way to watch a dub if certain actors are in it. Johnny Bosch, definitely one of those actors.
Yeah, I was gonna say Johnny on Bosch is universally loved here. I don't know what it is about his voice. He just really he really nails he can do he really nails the cocky, lovable jerk character.
He's a cool guy that I would let punch me in the face and I'd still be his friend.
Listen, I would let. What was you were telling me that story about how Johnny on Bosch hit a hobo in a face with a bag of quarters?
Yeah, you guys should look that up. It's on YouTube. If you look up Johnny on Bosch, hits a hobo accidentally.
It was an accident. Sure, it was an accident.
He was trying to give them like a bag of quarters, but because he was driving, the way it worked, just physics did not work in the hobo's favor. And in the head.
Anyway, yeah, he also played. He's also one of the main reasons why I like Code Geass. Although Code Geass is definitely a show I want to rewatch at some point.
It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I was gonna say you've seen Code Geass, right? I forget what else he's done. Anytime Johnny and Bosch shows up, I'm like, oh hell yeah. But his most notable role is he was also in Power Rangers.
Yes.
But no,
that's the biggest thing right now.
I think his most notable role, I don't know, at least for me anyway, is he's the main character in Bleach. And Bleach is like 15,000 episodes. Also, I'm continuing to go out of order, but just in case anyone, I said this before, but in case anyone was wondering, the total episode count for this discussion series, we're gonna be skipping all the dumb filler. Don't gotta watch that, I'll save you. But yeah, the total episode count is 209, including the new series that just dropped, like the first season, the first part of 1,000 Year Blood War. I was also, but listen, a lot of the filler is bad. The Bound arc, I think, is the sole reason that people turned on Bleach. Because people used to love Bleach, but now, like, when Bleach first came out, people loved Bleach, but then, like, the Bound arcs, like, soiled everyone on it. So, you just skip that arc. Just skip that arc. Don't even watch it. He didn't watch it. You don't gotta watch it. Just skip it.
I did not. I tried. I gave it, like, 3 episodes, and it's insane how bad a show can be in 3 episodes.
But yeah, but there are, listen, as bad as a lot of the filler is, I do think there is some decent filler, like, near the end of the series that I might put into the rewatch. I don't know. I'm thinking about it. Undecided. But we're also going to be watching all the movies, too, which are all on Amazon for $2 each. So if you want to do, we'll probably do, like, watch-alongs of those.
Hooray.
Okay, I was gonna say, do you have any objections? But since you said hooray, then there you go. Give me more respect, human. You are in the presence of royalty.
My bad.
My bad. I joined a Kid Icarus server, like a Kid Icarus Uprising multiplayer server the other day, and they're like, what the hell, Solaris? Isn't that the final boss from Sonic 06? And I'm like, I'm Prince of the Sun. They're like, yeah, sure, whatever, you buddy. And I'm like, why am I being bullied? I just want to play video games. Okay. Going off topic. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, but both the Japanese and the English version, they're good. There's like some there's like some things that the dub doesn't quite translate right, but like it is very few and far between. Like it is a very like faithful dub. So
yeah, the dub doesn't really change much at all. They have a few weird noun things, but that's about it. Like
yeah, like
I guess to stay on topic with the intro, Soul Reaper is like I like it. I like that a lot, but Shinigami just kind of makes more sense for what they're trying to be.
Yeah, I think
really a thing.
I mean, I don't know. I like the idea of Soul Reaper, not just because it has my name in it, but also like I think I want to blame Death Note for that, because I think Death Note had just used Shinigami, and then maybe they were like, oh, we don't want to overlap on Death Note's branding or whatever. But also Shinigami literally means like the god of death, and so I think that kind of makes them like, I don't know, it makes them seem like more powerful than they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess
they're not gods.
Yeah, I mean, at least for English speaking, if you're like, you know, like Shintoism, where like, you know, everything has a god, there's like a god of like that shoe over there.
Mm-hmm.
where the word like kami or gami is thrown around a little bit more. That makes more sense. But like in English, like when you say like the god of death, then like, oh, that's one person. I don't know. What was that? I had some other notes about that. It was in the miscellaneous category, but we can go out of order. I have like 1,200 words of notes for this first one. I was very surprised. I was not expecting to have so much to say. It's 1,600, yeah. Show good, and I had a lot to say about it. I was again surprised of how much I enjoyed the first like arc and like how much I have to say. Like they do introduce all the characters and all the concepts, so yeah. What else do they? I think they do relatively translate everything else like pretty straightforward, other than like the Soul Society. But I think that's also like a direct translation.
Sometimes they alter, and this is not something that happens in the first 17 episodes, but they do alternate between certain translations because I guess they weren't sure. Because I know Soul Society sometimes gets referred to as it's like actual just raw Japanese name. I don't remember exactly.
Seirete? I think the Seirete is no. The Seirete is the Soul Society. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes dub characters will say Seirete instead of Soul Society. They swap between it a little bit, but that's probably like the only time I can think of them doing that.
Yeah, I think it was Inuyasha that like kind of did a 180 because like half of Inuyasha's powers are like in English, like Iron Reaver, Soul Stealer. But then like near the end of the series, they just started like directly translating just in Japanese what his moves are. So he has like backslash wave and Iron Reaper Soul Stealer, and then like whatever Japanese like moon cutting ability he has.
Whoa.
Listen, if for context, this anime was like early 2000s. Like the manga started in 2001, and then the anime started in 2004 with the dubs slightly after that. So Meido Zan Getsuha, yeah. That's very funny. Anyway, so yeah, it was in the early stages of dubbing, where a lot of it is like a hit and a miss, but this one's definitely a hit. Other than like the weird like inconsistencies that they sometimes do.
Yeah, this is actually one of the shows that definitely have like a much better dub than its other contemporaries. Like, even especially the acting, because I know we say Johnny and Botch, but I think everyone in the cast, including I don't remember Rukia's dub actress.
Michelle Gruff, I think.
Yeah, Michelle Gruff, something like that.
I don't think it's Gruff.
Yeah, it's Gruff, I think, and she's great. I like her a lot as Rukia.
Earlier episode used Japanese when they explained, yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, all the cast is good. I mean, it still has that dub problem where like minor side characters still sound awful, but you know, not that big of a deal. Because there's like all the main characters you need good voices, have good voices. So like yeah, whatever. But yeah, also like we didn't see it very much into this series, but like the later that we go on, the more Japanese things that pop up. Like they do use the Japanese names for like all the techniques and stuff that they use. So yeah, I think just Soul Reaper is just a weird exception. Soul Reaper's like the one thing that they changed. Anyway, I can't think of any others because yeah, again, I think the only like Zongpak To name that we heard in this first series was Zabimaru, and that's just a direct translation. Again, you're gonna get slightly less out of it if you don't know Japanese, but you can always just look it up if you really care.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, going back to the first episode. Yeah, the first episode's really good at setting the tone. Like the first like scene of like, you know, Rukia explaining like the life and death and everything, and then it just jump cuts to Ichigo being like a dummy. It's really good at setting the tone. Cuz like yeah, there is like this like contrast between like, you know, the death and life and circle of rebirth or whatever that the whole Soul Society is based off of versus Ichigo just being some dumb kid. So I quite like that contrast. I think Ichigo's a really good main character in the context of this and just in general.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's nice to see how much focus is actually put on Ichigo in these first few episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna say even the first episode, like he gets character development in the first effing episode. Like he wants to like he's like his whole character arc throughout this first arc is like he just kind of rushes into things and hopes for the best. And that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So yeah, like in the first episode, like Rukia's like, hold on, stay here. I'm gonna go kill that hollow and save your sisters. And Ichigo's like, fuck that! And then he breaks the effing binding and then rushes at the effing giant monster with a foldable lawn chair or whatever. And gets everybody killed. But then he takes responsibility. He's like, hey, you know, fine. If it's what I have to do to save my sisters, then I will become a Soul Reaper. And that's a great, iconic moment. Just that shot. That shot gets brought up a lot throughout the series and, like, flashbacks and whatnot. Just because it's a really, like, iconic shot of Ichigo taking the sword and then exploding out and being a Soul Reaper. It's great.
Yeah, I'll also say his sword is really cool looking. I like that. It looks like Cloud Sword.
It looks like we are well, hold on. We are big sword enjoyers in this chat. As a fellow big sword haver myself, I definitely like his big sword. I also like how it kind of changes its like meaning throughout the series, because at the very beginning Ruki is like, holy crap, I've never seen someone with such a big sword. That must mean he has a lot of like abilities too, or like he must have like a lot of spiritual pressure, and like that is true. Like his spiritual energy is like higher, spiritual pressure or whatever they call it. I think they changed that through the series. I think at some point they stopped calling it spiritual energy and start calling it reishi. I could be wrong.
No, you are correct on that, actually.
Okay, because I watched both the Japanese and English version, so I don't remember what is in the dub and what is in the sub.
I remember when they first changed it to reishi, I was very, very, very confused. Because it is one of those things they just decided to stop translating then.
Oh yeah, all the magic techniques, Bakudo #1 Sai. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, enough about the translation. Yeah, I think that's I think it's a very like interesting like concept, because like, you know, like in other shonen, I will try not to compare this show to other shonen too much, but in other shonen, it's all about, especially like around this time, like Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, it's mostly like somebody who had like innate powers. And that is somewhat true here, because they do like drop hints here and there about how Ichigo's like special. Because they're like, oh, he was able to break the barrier, and oh, he has such a big sword. He has such a big throbbing sword. But yeah, it's not just that, you know. They go a little bit deeper, because like the Soul Reaper powers that he has in this first arc aren't his. Like they bring it up time and time again. Time and time again about how like these are just powers borrowed to him from Rukia. Like he basically stole Rukia's powers. Which, by the way, they explain later that she's gonna be executed for doing that. Then why can they even do that? Why is that a power that they can do if they're not allowed to use it? Is that just... I have no idea.
One of those forbidden techniques that you're really not supposed to do, but hey, you know, if you really want, you can fuck around, find out.
Fuck around, find out. But yeah, I think one of the main things that like may really set Bleach apart from like a lot of other shonen is that Ichigo's powers are more of a metaphor than in other shonen. Because like, yes, other shows, like this is a very like long staple thing about like, oh yeah, you know, you start off as a baby and then you get stronger and learn how to use your powers, and now you're an adult, and it's like a metaphor for like growing up. But and like Bleach definitely does do that too, you know. Like I think the Soul Society is a parallel for like the real world, because like it's confusing and doesn't make a lot of sense and has arbitrary rules and blah blah blah. So there is definitely, and again, Ichigo learns to use powers and mature and, you know, become level-headed, because like the thing that really screws him over in this first arc is him not having a level head. So it's definitely there, but in addition to the whole like, oh yeah, my powers are part of me growing up, Bleach just kind of takes it a step further, and I think that's, and you can kind of see the start of that here by like, oh, he has to borrow his powers. Like that's not necessarily something that a lot of like other shows do. Again, try not to compare too much, but Yeah, other, like, he does have innate power, but, like, the thing that, like, brings it out of him, like, is Rukia. Rukia is the thing that kind of, he borrows his powers from Rukia, you know, and already, like, off the bat, like, that really, like, sets Ichigo aside from, like, the other shonen protagonists, because, like, his powers are, like, borrowed and or like, not his in a way, and, like, he kind of has to find a way to, yeah, Rukia, Ichigo has to borrow Rukia's car for work. That is kind of what I was kind of hinting at. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure what it's supposed to be a metaphor for, but that it is definitely, like, that is a large theme of the series of, like, Ichigo, not to spoil up any more of the series, but, like, as that goes on, that continues being a reoccurring trend of, like, Ichigo's powers don't feel like his own, and he has to, like, find balance within himself, and very much, like, it's based on, like, Buddhism. I'm dying. Yeah, and also that also translates to the fights. Is there anything you wanted to say? I've been rambling.
No, so I'll just get it out right now, I guess, before anyone questions why I'm being so quiet. I brought it up before the stream, but I don't have too much to say about these early episodes. I definitely agree. I'll interject if you say anything that I heavily disagree with, but so far I don't really disagree with any of this.
Yeah.
But while I think these episodes are very solid, and I like all the character introductions, I don't have, like, too much love for this first arc.
I know, I've rediscovered my love for this first arc because, like, I understand it better, like, after watching, like, the whole series, it's easier to understand, like, oh, what kind of themes and topics are they going for, especially after watching, like, the first part of Thousand Year Blood War and then going back to this. I'm like, you know, I can see how there's little connections and everything.
Tide Kubo thought of everything.
He thought of was it a retcon, or did he plan it all along? We'll never know. But anyway, yeah, so yeah, don't worry about talking more or less, because I'm mostly doing this series just so I can rant about Bleach, and you're just along for the ride, man.
I'm just here to witness it.
You're here to what?
Witness it.
Oh, okay. But yeah, yeah, this also, yeah, this whole idea of, like, Ichigo, like, borrowing, like, Ichigo's powers, like, aren't his own, and, like, he needs to find, like, inner peace within himself and go on, like, this very spiritual journey, is most of what Bleach is about. It's, I mean, other shows, yeah, like, in Demon Slayer, he had a whole training arc where he had to, like, become strong and whatnot, and that's another thing, too, but, like, Bleach is, like, very, like, spiritual about it. We'll see, like, at the beginning of, like, the next arc, like, there's a lot of, like, meditation training and stuff like that, but no spoils. But yeah, I also...
No spoils. How about you tell us about the animation? How do you feel about how the show looks?
Wait, hold on, I'm not done with my metaphor yet.
Oh
no. I will get to that, don't worry. But I was gonna say also, so this obviously extends to, like, Ichigo's powers. Like, his powers are, like, a symbol for, like, trying to find inner peace with himself and, like, you know, borrowing other people's powers and, like, learning how to do things on his own and not rely on other people and blah, blah, blah. But this also kind of translates to the fights in this show. The fights in this show are also more metaphoric than anything else. Because people criticize this show a lot for, like, doing resolve hacks or whatever. Because they're, characters in this, no spoils, but characters in this series often win fights that they're not supposed to. This happened in the first arc too, where, like, he severely wounded Grand Fisher, who has been evading the Soul Society, who has, like, 15,000 people who can do things way better than Ichigo. Like, he was able to wound him, and he also wounded a Menos Grande. So, like, yeah, Ichigo definitely wins fights that he's not supposed to, but, like, the fight is not necessarily what's the important part. It's more like what the fight symbolizes. Because, like, most fights in this show are more like tests of, like, character or, like, tests of resolve. Going back to that idea of, like, you know, everything's, like, spiritual and everything's, like, a metaphor. Like, the fights, that extends to the fights as well. But did Grand Fisher ever come back? That's a spoiler. But yes. What was I gonna say? What was I saying?
Grand Fisher is a funny name.
No, go before that. Oh yeah, the fight, the Ichigo's powers are like symbolic for like spiritual awareness or whatever, and like the fights are also like the same with that too. You know, like a lot of the reason Ichigo loses a lot of the fights in this first arc is because he's hot-headed and doesn't think. Like people tell him all the time, like, oh, you don't even have a plan, you're blinded by emotion, blah 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 blah. And like sometimes that works out for him because sometimes he can just have really strong resolve and win fights, but then sometimes, like, you know, his resolve kind of crumbles and he ends up losing. So basically what I'm trying to say is that I think the way that people look at this show is a little like skewed, because if you look at it like as like a regular ass like battle anime, then like, yeah, people just bring out crap that they don't even know. Like this series is one of the most infamous of just like, most fights end with, oh, now I'll show you my real power. But like, you know, getting to that point, it's more about like the emotional and like spiritual battle that's happening in the show than anything else. You know, like whoever has like the better resolve or like the better like spiritual awareness is the one that usually wins the fights.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think it works really well with not just Ichigo, but even his friends that end up unlocking their powers.
Yeah, that happens too. Like they do give a reason later for why they have powers, but yeah, most of the reason why they have powers is like, oh, you got your powers awakened because you wanted to protect your friends, or like I forget, like Chad unlocked his powers because like, oh, he had a strong desire to protect his friends. And same thing with like Orihime, she like unlocked her powers because the show explicitly states this, by the way. I'm not just inferring things. Like they literally say like, oh yes, your resolve to want to help people and your frustration at being weak is why, you know, your powers awakened. So like, yeah. And I on that note, I think the show is very like, it has good theming because like people aren't like actually fighting with their bodies, right? They're fighting with their spirits, and the kind of like fights reflect that, right? Am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy, especially if we're just talking. I think this goes more so for the later parts of Bleach, but this early part definitely, at least for the character developments between Ichigo and his friends, I believe.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a coincidence that like a lot of the plot and a lot of like the power development, a lot of like what gets characters stronger, and a lot of like the fights are less down to like raw physical power and more down to like spiritual power, and that's kind of like reflected by the fact that they're not fighting with their bodies, they're fighting with their spirits. So yes, it's show good, very unique. I'm just looking at my notes real fast. Yeah, the most of the fights that Ichigo wins is just because he really, really, really wants to win, and he's willing to throw down his life in order to win. You know, like he like nearly died like 15,000 times. And then later, like Uryu, like to show the opposite side of that, he has like shame and like he wasn't able to protect his grandfather because he wasn't willing to throw down his life for him, and that's something that he regrets. Yeah, another thing about Ichigo is that yeah, the reason that he loses his fights is because he's too hot-headed or like doesn't have a plan. Like I'm pretty sure Grand Fisher also was like shit talking him during that whole fight of like, you don't even know what you're doing, you don't have a plan, your emotions cloud your judgment, blah 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 blah. Ichigo just be squirting blood in every fight. Yeah. It's really funny to see like Ichigo get like practically cut in half. Like that you remember the Grand Fisher fight where like he got stabbed several times and like had a spike going through his chest, and then literally like in the next scene he was back in his body like perfectly fine.
Bleach gore is very, very funny to me, and it's present in the start where there's just it's kind of like Inuyasha in that sense, where these are both shows with a lot of blood, but it's very cartoony blood. It's not like a kind of scary gory, it's just like, or even a gross, it's just like, you know, Ichigo gets like a slight paper cut and a ton of blood gushing.
Don't tell him about the 1,000-Year Blood War.
times. Oof.
The show, yeah, it's really weird because yeah, this, like, the main series of Bleach is very, like, kind of also infamous for being very censored compared to the manga. Like, they show a lot less, like, gore and blood and stuff in people's arms getting ripped apart and stuff like that. But there's still a bit of it. But then, like, in the 1,000-Year Blood War, like, they give no Fs. It gets so effing violent, and there's some shots in that first season of 1,000-Year Blood War that, gave me nightmares. Don't worry about it. We'll get to that when we get to that. But I think it was just its air date. Because I looked this up. I was curious, so I looked it up. The original Bleach anime aired at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday. And the 1,000-Year Blood War is getting aired at midnight. So I think that's why there's a difference in the censoring and whatnot.
I do remember 1,000-Year Blood War, when it was coming out, they made a very big deal of how it was going to be completely uncensored.
Yeah, and then it got acquired by Disney, and they're like, no! And they're like, no.
Ichigo for the next Kingdom Hearts, let's go.
Bleach in Kingdom Hearts 4, hell yeah, let's do it. Anyway, yeah, something else interesting is, like, Ichigo's, like, motivations for fighting, because, like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. My mind is getting mushled. Don't worry about it. Too many thoughts, too little head. So you remember that thing in episode 2, where Rukia is basically like, oh yeah, if you have to protect as a Soul Reaper, and Ichigo's like, nah, that was just a one-time thing to protect my family, and then Rukia brings him to, like, some random kid getting murdered by a hollow, and Ichigo's like, well, I gotta go save him, and Rukia's like, if you save this guy, then that means you have to commit to saving everybody. Remember that part? I do remember, and I actually really like that part. Yeah, Ichigo basically says, like, F you, I'm just gonna protect whoever the hell I want to protect. He's like, I'm not some sort of superhero that can protect the entire world, but I am, like, I do want to protect the people that are close to me, you know, people that I can see. He's very pragmatic. Yeah, I really like that, because it feels like Rukia was trying to teach him, like, a certain sense of responsibility that comes with the job. And he just said, fuck it. it shows Ichigo's character that he is not this, like, Superman character with even his morality, where he's not, like, an asshole about it or anything. I don't think Ichigo is very often, like, a complete asshole. No, he's more of, like, the lovable one. Yeah, he's very, like, pragmatic about things. Mm-hmm. I got school on Monday. I can't be going out saving everybody. But yeah, he's like, I'm not going to go out of my way to save a complete stranger, but I will protect. He is very determined to protect the people that he cares about. For example, in Grand Fisher, we kind of find out about, like, his whole resolve is because, you know, his mom died trying to protect him, and then he feels really guilty about that, so he kind of transfers that kind of trauma to, oh, I'm just going to protect everybody to make sure nothing like that ever happens again. Right? Very noble of him. Yeah, because he does feel, like, responsible for his mother's death, even though no matter how many times the other characters in the show are like, oh, it wasn't your fault, you were literally 9 years old. Just a baby. You're just a little baby, and then you were going up against the effing thing. So yeah, don't worry about it. And we'll also learn more about that later, but spoilers! But, yeah. To answer... Wait, why... Tevin, haven't you seen the whole series? Why are you asking if the Grand Fisher ever comes back? Because yeah, how that fight ended is like, oh, Ichigo, he didn't die. He did gravely injure Grand Fisher and kind of get his revenge, but then Grand Fisher kind of ran away. But yeah, A, Grand Fisher comes back, and B, Ichigo does get revenge for his mom. It's just very complicated, and we can't get into that right now because spoilers, and it's also very complicated. But all you need to know right now is that, they also refer to his name as, like, the one who protects, because that's what like the kanji for ichi and go means. So he's like the protector. He's not the protector of everybody. He's not like Superman. He's not just gonna go around saving random people, even though he kind of does in this season. Mostly because Rukia makes him. Rukia's like, oh, there's a hollow, and he's like, fine, I'll go. I guess. Can't remember haven't seen anything other than I've seen everything other than the new stuff. Okay, me too. So I've not read the manga, but I am up to date with the anime. Anyway, not important. Have you read any of the manga? No, I don't think so.
I have not. I did, so I only read a little bit to like refamiliarize myself when I was getting back into Bleach last year, because I had seen these first like 17 episodes before, like on and off on TV, but also when I tried to rewatch it way back. So to kind of like make sure I remember like all the events, I like read the first 2 volumes of Bleach just real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then I jumped back to where I was in the anime, which was like some like episode 20 or something like that.
Yeah, I've read a little bit. I think I've read the manga up until like the Grimjaw fight. But yeah, no, the anime is just really good. We can talk about the anime if you want now. Oh, I think I was gonna save that till later. Yeah, no, whatever. We'll talk about it later. Don't worry about it. I have 2 more things to say about the intro. About the intro, quote unquote. It's been 50 minutes. But yeah, so all my context is based off of is just the first season of Thousand Year Blood War. But yeah, the last 2 things I was gonna say is yeah, wanting to get stronger and protect people is a very shonen thing. Is a very stereotypical like shonen thing. But again, the how and why is what kind of sets Bleach apart. Kind of difficult to I mean, we talked about it a little bit here by talking about how like spiritual the series is, but like definitely the farther it goes on, the more like hitches we get in that. Because it's not Ichigo's journey to become strong is not a straight line, okay? It has a lot of twists and turns and curves and a
few pit stops.
But yeah, again, like what you were saying. Anyway, about the anime in general, like again, this first arc uses a Monster of the Week format to like introduce the characters. And yeah, I think that works out really well. It's very going forward, it will be very different. So the first arc kind of is unique in that way. There's a couple of plot holes. There's no plot holes. Tite Kubo planned out everything from the beginning. And if you think otherwise, you're a naysayer.
If you think otherwise, you just missed the lines, dude. You didn't read in between the lines. Anyway, yeah, so uses the Monster of the Week to talk about, or uses the Monster of the Week format to, like, introduce, like, the world and the characters. And that's the next topic. We're finally moving past the intro. Is that how you spell characters? I have no faith in myself. Bet. Okay. Yeah? Yeah.
Okay. Yay! He praised me! You spelled a word correctly on, like, the second try. I'm proud of you. Anyway. You okay there, buddy?
I'm doing good.
You're doing good, okay. Yeah, it's funny. Me and Azerad, we BFFs, and we talk via text like all the time. But this is like the first time that we've talked in like 5 years, like using our voices.
It's been a very long time.
So things might be a little bit awkward at first, but don't worry about it.
I don't think so, but now it feels awkward now that you said that.
It wasn't awkward before you said it was awkward. Anyway.
Characters. I like them.
Okay, anyway, I'm dead. Hold on. Okay. Anyway, yeah, characters. We were talking about this in text. Again, Azerad and I talk. We're close. We're close like brothers. We just mostly talk in text chat most of the time. Text chat is very different from talking in real life. Anyway, characters. This will become more apparent as Bleach goes on, but that the big double-edged sword in Bleach is its amazing sidecast. Social anxiety even with friends. That's what he was saying earlier.
Sometimes.
Anyway, yeah, we were talking about this, right? About how the best and worst thing about Bleach is its side characters.
If you think that, so I think, even in this point, Bleach kind of introduces a lot of characters at you. Ichigo has 2 sisters. He has a school friend. He has a love interest.
He has like 2 school friends.
Oh yeah, he's right. That's right. He has 2 male school friends. Then he has Orihime's friend. Then he has Orihime. Then he has Chad. And then that's not even getting into like the other Soul Reaper characters like
yeah, like all the characters. There's also Mr. Hattenclogs and
yeah, and then he has like 3 people hanging out with him.
Yeah, and then there's like the cat that was introduced at the very last second in this arc. And then also
the cat everyone has a thing for.
The cat. Don't say that without context, buddy.
Context needed.
Listen, if you've only seen up to episode 17, just know that everyone wants to fuck this cat.
This cat has the most fan art, believe it or
not. No spoilers. Anyway. Yeah, so basically Bleach has a lot of characters, but they do get like a lot of development. Like Chad had like 2 episodes. Chad had like 2 or 3 episodes. Uryu had like a whole episode. Orihime had like a whole episode. Like, they do get development, and again, throughout these like 200 episodes, like pretty much everybody does get like a decent amount of screen time dedicated to them. There's at least like, even like the most minor of minor characters in the series, like I can think of at least like 1 or 2 like episodes where they were like the focus. Outside of maybe like very super minor characters like Hattenclogs, like kids? Question mark? I don't know where they came from. They never explain it.
Did they never? I was hoping we'd refine that.
I could be wrong, but they give it an explanation for where Hattenclogs and like his assistant come from. But like I don't think they ever understand. I don't think they ever like they never explain where his kids came from. But like outside of like minor characters like that, whose names I can't even remember. Yeah, it's like Ururu and Jinta, I think. Again, only remember this because I just finished watching these 17 episodes yesterday. But yeah,
and it's not like those characters were really a highlight.
Yeah, again, there's some characters that you see them once and they never show up again. But like, you know, 90% of the side cast does get some decent time dedicated to them. Which is a good thing because like the side cast is really good and there's like basically no bad characters essentially. I mean, there's some hit and misses obviously in a big cast like this. But yeah, it's great. I love the side characters. I know you were raving about the side characters earlier.
Yeah, no, I think so. Even though there's a lot of them and not all of them are perfect, especially I think in this arc, doesn't do my point very well because I don't think there's a lot of characters here that I love.
What are you hold on, what are you clicking?
Cookie clicker.
I was gonna say okay, go on.
Yeah, no, I think Ichigo's immediate circle of friends, Uryu, Orihime, and Chad, are very cool and like kind of iconic. Even though if maybe the fans don't really agree too much, I think the later characters are a lot more popular. But it feels like Tide Kubo himself really likes this little trio plus Uryu.
The classic pairing of Ichigo, Uryu, Chad, Orihime is basically like the main characters for like the next 2 arcs. So like
yeah, and I think this arc does a great job of setting them up, and I think next arc does a pretty good job of giving all the payoff.
Yeah, but the downside of having so many great characters is like there's some like there is no concept of like a minor character. It's either like you have the main character Ichigo and then you have all the side characters. Like, you know, there's not like, yeah, like Orihime, Chad, and Uryu do have like some focus in this like early on, but then like then they kind of have to make way for like the other characters that are in this show. There's like a million characters in this show, and they all have like good scenes and good episodes. But like, you know, if there's like 100 characters and 200 episodes, like that's not going to be as distributed as people like. Like there's a lot of debate of if Rukia is a side character or not. Cause like she is basically like a main character in this first arc, but like after this first arc she becomes like a side character. Where like she definitely shows up. She's definitely like the main plot point of like they gotta go rescue her, obviously, but like she's not like in every single episode like she is in, like in this first arc. So but no, I like all the side characters.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool that I think I like that all these characters being introduced. It really makes Bleach's town feel pretty alive.
Yeah,
like the fact that you see his sisters walking around town, you see his friends from high school like interacting with other characters, same they would like Hat and Clogs.
That is,
it's done very naturally.
Yeah, that is something like I wasn't thinking, because we were just complaining about all the minor characters that don't do anything, but like they still help to like populate the world. Like we still have like the actual side characters, you know, Rukia, Orihime, Chad, Uryu. But then we also have like the random, like, you know, what was that? There's like a random lesbian character that shows up. Like there's like Orihime's like friend circle. But like the thing about them is like they all have like
the glasses.
They all have like unique designs and like memorable personalities. I think that what comes off to me for Tadekubo, just like following Bleach and his work in general for a very long time, he likes character design. Like,
dude, he loves drawing people.
He loves drawing people. So like I think that's why Bleach has so many side characters, and like even like all the like background characters have like memorable designs too. Like I'm pretty sure later like Tadekubo like just, I think in an art book or somewhere, like he just made designs and made names for literally like everyone in Ichigo's class.
Whoa.
So like even people you don't see at all in the anime and manga, he's like, yeah, I still got them all written down. So yeah, it definitely makes the world feel fleshed out. But again, there's a lot of characters, so it's very difficult to determine like what is a side character and what is a main character. But they kind of I think they do a pretty good job of that. Like you can clearly tell, like, okay, Rukia, Orihime, Chad, Uryu, they're all more important than like random background characters. But
I think if you pick a favorite character, it'll usually be about the ones that have the development.
But you know, there's still like there's a couple characters who are like, oh, I thought they'd be a main character, but no, they're a background character. Like Tatsuki, like Orihime's like tomboy friend, because she does do things every now and again, but she never really like, she's not part of like the main like 4 characters, you know. She doesn't get like superpowers at any point. So I don't know, man. But yeah, I like all the characters. Everyone remembers Tatsuki. Yeah, listen, everybody remembers Tatsuki because Tatsuki's great, but like she doesn't do anything. Spoiler alert. I'm pretty sure she doesn't do anything.
Not really.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing later on, but
anyway, yeah. But all the other characters that do get development is great. Like Rukia, a lot of people like Rukia. I don't know if I'm necessarily in like the hardcore, like, oh yes, Rukia needs to be a main character all the time kind of guy, but I do like her character arc of being like a Soon towards the humans. Because like her whole thing,
damn Ningans.
Her whole thing is like, oh, she's a super serious Soul Reaper, but like, you know, she learns to like, you know, relax and have fun and enjoy her time in the human world, especially those like last like 3 episodes, you can really tell. Like, right before, like, the final battle of this arc, there's an entire episode just dedicated to, you know, showing Rukia just hanging out at school and having fun, and, you know, Orihime's like, oh, you should come to the fireworks festival with us, and she's like, oh, yeah, I should. And she's, like, has this whole, like, mental dilemma about how, like, oh, yeah, you know, I don't belong here, but I like it here, and shitting on Rukia. How dare you? No, listen, I like all the characters in this show, but Rukia is like one of those like fan favorites that like people are mad that she gets kind of sidelined later. And I'm not in quite that team, but I still like Rukia. She's cool. Her character is cool about how her general character is cool, and I like her arc in this like first arc about how like she's on borrowed time. Like she's always under constant threat of like, oh, they're gonna find you out, and they're gonna kill you.
I like that aspect, and I like that it actually happens. Basically.
It does happen. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions.
Can I talk about a character I really disliked until pretty much the newest series that just came out?
Is it in the first arc?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. You have permission
no spoilers.
You have permission to speak human.
Mean again. Rewatching this, I still while I like most of the characters, I'm not a huge fan of Uryu. I don't like how he's set up. I don't really like that even in these early episodes, his accomplishments, which, you know, not that a character's value is based purely on their like accomplishments in fights or whatever, but I feel like he was initially set up to be kind of like, and mind you, Ichigo over the course of the series gets many like rival type characters, many. There's
like 100 rival characters. Yeah, I was gonna say that's why I kind of like Uryu, because like in the beginning he is kind of portrayed as like a villain straight up, like he wants to just, I don't know, kill Ichigo or prove that he's worthless. So I like how he's kind of like portrayed as a villain or a rival, but yeah, that is not a unique thing to Uryu as the series goes on.
Yeah, a lot of characters get introduced as a rival or straight up as a villain of Ichigo and then turn into more of just a rival character. And I think out of all of them, Uryu is my least favorite. Uryu
is basically Knuckles.
he's like a way less cool. He's like he put glasses on Knuckles. Dork.
Cause listen. He's listen. I'm not crazy with this Knuckles comparison, okay? Cause he's the rival to the main character for a very brief period of time before other rival characters get introduced, and he's the last of his kind. I'm just saying.
Well, I do think they take Uryu in much better places as the series goes on. These early episodes in this early arc, they do not sell me on him fast. They really don't.
Yeah, like what makes Uryu interesting is like what makes the Quincy's interesting. Because Uryu right now is just like he's kind of a jerk. I don't know. He does show up to help Rukia, but that's mostly just because he wants to murder some Soul Reapers. Also, hi Biffy. But yeah, he's cool just because like the concept of the Quincy's are cool, because like they're very interesting parallels to Soul Reapers, because like I think Uryu gets introduced decently way through, so like we're familiar with Soul Reapers. I think that was after Grand Fisher, right?
Oh yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah, so we've seen a couple of Soul Reapers. We've seen Rukia, we've seen Ichigo. Obviously, there was a guy that showed up briefly in the Grand Fisher arc, but yeah, so we are familiar with the Soul Reapers, but like, you know, the Quincy's coming along kind of give you more context. I don't know. They're interesting parallel, because the Soul Reapers, their whole thing is that they don't kill the Hollows. They just cleanse them and let them move on to the next plane of existence. Where Quincy's just straight up like kill them.
Yeah, they like erase them.
Yeah. I think they also bring up like interesting religious parallels. Because, like, okay, if the Soul Reapers and all that stuff is based off, like, Shintoism and Buddhism, the Quincy's are kind of, like, they're rivals, so they'd be like Christians, I guess. I'm kind of more inferring what we hear later, but all we get right now is that his like main thing that he uses to activate his weapon is a cross, and he dresses in all white. So sure, let's just call him a Christian parallel. But
I never thought about that before.
yeah, that gets more relevant later into the series.
Much later.
Much later, but yeah, I think the Quincy's are cool, and the whole kind of like viewing the series as more of like a spiritual journey, and the Quincy's are kind of like at odds with that. Like the Quincy's like are more like, if the Soul Reapers are like more metaphorical, like, oh, we're here to cleanse the world and Buddhism and whatnot, the cycle of life, like Quincy's are here to just be like the exterminators. They just gonna control alt delete the effing hollows. And again, like, they also give more context. I think I talked about this a little bit earlier about how like the Soul Society is like a parallel or like a metaphor for like the adult world, because it's scary and unknown, and they have a bunch of rules that don't make a lot of sense. Right? Am I crazy?
I don't think you're crazy for that.
Okay. But yeah, this is another one where like, yeah, they made the decision to murder to basically, what's that word where you kill an entire species? Exterminate? Genocide. They decided to genocide the entire Quincy's just because like they were upsetting the balance of the universe. And that's very much of like I'm a dumb kid and I don't understand the adult rules and things aren't black and white and blah, blah, blah. Eradicate! But yeah, I think they do a good job with showing that the Soul Society is trying to make good decisions but are kind of evil. Because again, they annihilated all the Quincy's, you know, they are gonna murder Rukia for trying to help people. Also like the mod souls, they also eradicated. Why is there two? Why are there two genocides in this one first series? Because both
the Soul Reapers are kind of assholes.
They're like, they don't. I mean, listen, we can assume that all the Quincy's that they killed just turned into spirits, and then they let them pass on. Maybe, I don't know. It's a little unclear. It's almost like a Soul Society's Commandant, the human society. But on mod souls, we can also talk about Cone. Cone is kind of an annoying character. He's like the pervert friend comic relief character. And I've never been a huge fan of that kind of character. Do you have any? You may speak.
Yeah. I don't really care too much for Cone. I think I like his design, I'll be honest. I like the little lion plushie. His lion
plushie, yeah. The lion, it's iconic. I have an actual, like, real-life plushie of Cone.
I was gonna say, I would probably have had one if I had watched this many, many years ago. And I will buy one eventually, I think.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him around at cons, yeah.
I don't like the idea that it looks like from some of the video games, he seems to, especially from that era, the early era of Bleach, he seems to be kind of like the mascot character.
I think they were trying to make him a mascot.
It feels like they were pushing that.
Bleach is a magical girl show? That's another hot take I wanted to share. Is because, listen, think about it, okay? There's a transforming hero that goes around and fights evil, and he has an animal mascot. Bleach is a magical girl show.
I guess I can maybe see it.
You know what? I'm not gonna deny it. There is a transforming hero, and there is a transforming hero that defeats evil, and you made the joke before I did.
It runs into a lot of similarities, kind of like Preacher.
Also, while we're talking about similarities to other shows, this is completely unrelated, but in a later and do you know the anime Is This a Zombie? You ever seen?
Yes.
Okay. In that they do a Bleach reference in that show, where the main character like steals powers from a girl, and that's how he gets like his powers in that show. But they play it off as like a joke because he steals his powers from like a magical girl, and then he has like the magical girl outfit.
This is a funny scene. I remember that.
I want to rewatch Is This a Zombie? I think I just got really... I watched the anime when it was new, and it was sick, and I'm like, oh man, they seem to stop like right before things were getting good. So then I went to read the manga, and then I found out that the manga stopped at the exact same point as the anime. I
actually hate it when that happens.
Crazy. But yeah, no, I don't hate Kon. I think Kon is an interesting character, just because he has like a tragic backstory. You know, like again, it gives context to what kind of place the Soul Society is. It's like, oh, it's like the real society, man. But also like, he has a cool like tragic backstory about how like, oh yeah, he's the last of his kind. He's Knuckles, and he was like trapped. He was trapped in a box forever. Like, oh yeah, you know, he was lucky to be alive as long as he did, but he knew he was gonna die at some point. And then
everyone is just like Knuckles.
Everyone is just Knuckles. You're either Knuckles or Sonic in this world. There's no in between. Which one are you?
A Knuckles.
I was gonna say you come out. You're a Knuckles for 100%. Anyway,
I fell off the rival train a bit.
A tragic backstory that I forgot about. I was gonna talk about that. The concept of like mod souls, like this whole like mod soul thing of like, oh yeah, you know, they made like a bunch of artificial souls to like boost power of something to make a fighting force, and they're like, fuck it, let's just kill them all. Like that is really interesting, but it never gets brought up ever again. But you know where it does get brought up at some point. You want to know where?
When's that?
In a filler arc.
Whoa.
That's one of the reasons why I was debating including there's like 2 particular filler arcs that I was debating including. And one filler arc, it does give a lot of more depth into like a lot more backstory and like more like development to like mod souls, and like Kon gets like character development and stuff like that, and I'm like, that's cool. That's what filler episodes should do, is like expand like the lore where like the main series didn't have enough time. But yeah, I might include that just for that reason, because it's like one of those fillers that's like A, good, and B, like I consider it headcanon. Because like there's literally no point in the series else where they like try to develop Kon's character, or they try to do anything with mod souls at all. Because again, after this arc, like Kon becomes like kind of irrelevant. I think he comes back briefly in the 1,000-Year Blood War, but he's not very relevant outside of, again, this first arc and the filler arc. I'm watching all the filler. You Can't Stop Me. Good luck. You will not be able to.
I tried.
You will not be able to make it for the Bound arc.
I tried so hard.
He made it.
But seeing the characters run between the stupid telephone lines, I couldn't. That was awful. They spent a whole episode on that. A whole 20 minutes.
I remember. I haven't rewatched the Bound arc, obviously, because it's bad, but I did watch it through once when I watched the series, and yeah, it's bad. I already have before I do it again. That's crazy. Biffy, you're crazy. We're also not going to give you any time. I don't know. We might. We're just gonna go straight from episode 63 to 90 something. Because yeah, the Bound arc is the problem with the Bound arc is that it's very long, it's very boring, and it's very bad. But
also the animation isn't good in it. That's the last I'll say about the Bound arc.
Yeah. And that's kind of, I don't know. There's that arc, and then there's like random like 1 or 2 episode fillers which are really bad. Like the next batch of episodes I have specifically written down to skip an episode because like it's a random filler episode that breaks the pacing. And this is a real big issue later in the series, but don't worry, just use my episode guide and don't watch any of the filler episodes. I thought the final fight of the Bound was amazing. I think you might be right. I think I do remember that, like the last fight being like, okay, at least this is something. But that might just be in contrast to the boringness that everything else was. I just had low standards when I got to that point. But yeah, I think the Bound arc and those random like 1 or 2 episode fillers that kind of messed the pacing up. Because like literally like, okay, I might complain about this later on, but like literally like one of the most climactic fights in the entire series gets cut in half with like a 2 episode filler. Why? Why?
I would really appreciate it. I doubt they'll ever do it. But I'd really like a recut. More shonens need to do this. Old shonens, they need to recut their series
and re-release it.
Yeah, re-release it. Just not. You don't have to do new animation. No, nothing. Just recut it so that the filler is not the all the issue with Bleach is you would have to reanimate some things because they incorporate the filler characters into the main story eventually. It's not
very
intrusive,
minorly. You can still ignore them. They'll just be like, "Whoa, who the hell are you?" And then they kind of disappear. Because yeah, the Bound arc doesn't introduce like a couple characters, but like that show up in canon episodes, but then they kind of disappear, and you don't really have to worry about it.
They even show up in openings.
Yeah.
like big deals in the openings.
Anyway, but there are some filler arcs I think are pretty good. There's at least 2 in particular that like, you know, have good animation, have an interesting story, expand the lore in interesting ways. So, Bird Hoodie Girl? Are you talking about one of the Bound characters? Anyway, not important. That's all I was gonna say, is that Cone is kind of a bland, nothing character, but he does get development in a good filler arc, but that's not till like way later. Yeah, like way later. Don't worry about it. The only one I remember. Anyway, back to talking about the characters. You remember we were talking about characters? Chad's cool.
I like Chad.
Chad is literally a Chad. Which I don't know. It can't be based off the meme because that wasn't a meme at that point.
I don't think that was a thing back then.
Retroactively was based off a meme. Because his name is actually Sato, and the kanji reading for Sato, like the sa in Sato is the kanji for tea, and that kanji can also be read as cha. So they changed it to Chad. So that's why they call him Chad, in case anyone was curious. I was tearing up during the Chad backstory today. I love Chad. Did you watch this entire arc just today? Biffy, are you crazy? Maybe he does have the power to get through the Bound arc. He's beautiful and perfect, yeah. Yasutora Sato, yeah, that's his actual name, but everybody calls him Chad. See, I'm not the only one who has a dumb name that nobody ever uses, and most people just call me by my nickname, being Soul. But if you want to call me Solaris, then you can. Or Mr. Enyo, although Mr. Enyo is my father. What are we talking about?
That's lame.
I'm being bullied again! This is just like the Kid Icarus Uprising's Discord server. I was gonna do more, but decided to do birthday stuff. Okay, I see. Anyway, Chad's really cool. He's like this big, tall, buff guy who's like basically invincible. And like throughout the series, he's still like portrayed as like one of the strongest characters. Like even in this series, he's like the only like human to like fight a hollow. Cause you know, in that episode, like that Chad episode where he was like protecting the little kid and the bird. Right? Remember? Buddy?
I remember.
Okay.
I was letting you keep going.
But yeah, he like fought that hollow like without having any powers. He had 0 powers. He didn't have a Zongpak toe. He didn't have a whatever Quincy bow. He didn't have nothing. He just straight up, all hands, no fluff, squared up with that hollow. It was great. I love it. So yeah, and then later he does actually get powers. Like he gets that like big armor that you see on his arm. But like he don't even need it. He don't even need it. He was going like toe to toe with that like, and again like this wasn't just like a random hollow that just so happened to show up. Like, there was another Hollow that, like, had evaded Soul Reapers for a while. No, I don't know. I wonder, I forget exactly what his backstory of that guy was, but he was, like, a serial killer. And he, like, used the bird in order to, like, trick people and kill them. Didn't he fight 2 Hollows? He did fight 2 Hollows. I'm talking about, like, the first fight. The first fight where, like, he had no powers, and Rukia's like, yeah, he's over there, punch over there, and he, like, got him. But then, like, later, yeah, he did get, like, powers and didn't, like, actually fight another Hollow. Giant buff man with a heart of gold that's top 15 at the school and loves birds. He was written for me. There you go. I think I knew this before, but yeah, that's Biffy's favorite character. Also, going back to talking about Tadakubo designing cool characters, like, especially for, like, back in, like, the early 2000s, like, diversity is, like, not a very common thing that you see in Japanese media. So, like, to see someone who, Chad is, for the uninitiated, is half Mexican, half Japanese. So, like, yeah, to see, and that was, listen, Japanese media does not have a lot of, like, diversity. Not because, like, they're racist or anything, but just because, like, having lived in Japan for 3 years, there's not a lot of diversity in Japan. You know,
it's not a thing you see there, so it kind of makes sense that there's not a lot of exchange students from, like, Mexico in, like, tons of other anime.
Yeah, I think I knew, like, there were, like, in the place, in, like, the prefecture I lived in, there were, like, 3 black guys, and I knew all of them. They were cool. What were we talking about? Anyway, yeah, Chad, yeah. I'm not exactly sure of his backstory. I think he was born in Japan, and then lived in Mexico, and then went back to Japan. I don't remember. I don't think they specify. But yeah, he's cool. I don't have he's a very like more, I guess also like more of a traditional like shonen character. He's very like simplistic, and he has a heart of gold, and he's willing to throw down for, like, unlike Ichigo, Chad is 100% willing to throw down for a complete stranger. Where like Ichigo,
Chad's a very nice guy.
Yeah, it's
nicer than Ichigo.
He's, you know what, nicer than Ichigo. Yeah. And I think he dates more developments later on. He uses his fist to protect, exactly. Just like his grandfather wanted him to. But yeah, it's really cool. I like Chad. He fights for his friends. Born in Japan, moved to Mexico to live with his grandfather, then moved back to Japan. Okay. So there you go. But yeah, he's a cool character. Do you have anything more to say about Chad?
No, I don't think enough really happens in these set of episodes. For
yeah, he just has like 2 episodes. One where he squares down with an invisible hollow, and then one where he has a flashback of his dad telling him, or his grandfather telling him to use his power for good and not evil, and then he gets powers. But we don't have a lot to talk about right now. You know, a character I will defend? People give a lot of crap to, you know, I will throw down.
Let's hear it.
Is Orihime's I think a good character.
I fully agree. I had a feeling you were talking about her, and it's not even just through looking back at these episodes. I think Orihime was always awesome. Always. Name
Chad's power in this arc. I don't think no, they don't. Sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, I think she's consistently one of the funniest characters, intentionally. I don't think it's like an ironic thing.
People not like Orihime. I kind of get that impression, although I don't know. It might have a lot of other factors in play, but people kind of just say that, oh, Orihime is just like a very generic, like, cutesy anime girl, but like, nah, she's great. She's cute. She's funny. She has a weird thing about like eating weird food.
She's got really big, you know what I'm saying? You know, she's got huge, you know what I'm saying?
Anyway. You know
what I'm saying?
But yeah, I think she's just like just as a basic, she is a good like comic relief character. A better comic relief character than Cone. Cohen basically has like kind of a one note to him. But yeah. That she constantly thinks about Ichigo. Yeah, I think that's another thing, is that like most of her like dialogue is talking about a guy. So bad writing, but no, she does have like even in this first arc, she does have like, you know, good character development.
I'm actually gonna go ahead and disagree with the whole her only like thing is Ichigo. I think she thinks about a lot of her friends, and she even brings up her brother a bit, right? That's what
I was about to say. Yeah.
Yeah, her brother stuff is really cool. She likes Tatsuki a lot. Good lesbian, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think she gets a little bit. No, I don't know. I could be wrong. We'll talk about that when we get to that. But yeah, definitely this first arc, like, she has a whole episode just to herself about protecting her friends who aren't Ichigo, and I think her like she also has like interesting like contrast, because like usually she has like a bubbly personality, but also she has a tragic backstory, you know? Her brother Sora from Kingdom Hearts.
Now on Disney Plus.
There was gonna be a Kingdom Hearts anime. Whatever happened to that?
I'm sure it's still coming along.
When? Okay, anyway. Also, it's been, I think, officially a year now since we've seen that first Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer.
It has, yeah.
Orihime's backstory got censored. I mean, I think I know that there was, like the amount of blood, or, like, what are you talking about? Or are they just more depictive? Anyway, yeah, her brother died. And, like, that was, like, her only family, because her parents, like, abandoned them when she was young. Kingdom Hearts anime will follow the plot of Kingdom Hearts 5. At this point, yeah. But yeah, I like her bubbly personality with the contrast of the backstory with her brother. And also, you know, like, she does get a lot of good, like, development, like, in that first, arc, too. Because, like, you know, she kind of, like, blames herself for her brother's death in some way. But, like, throughout in the episode, I think it was, like, the third episode. It was, like, the second or third episode. It was really early on. I was surprised. Bet. But yeah, she kind of, like, by the end of that episode, she kind of, like, is able to talk with her brother and kind of, like, make peace. And she's like, oh, yeah, don't worry about me. You can move on to the afterlife. I'll be okay. You know, I'm going to try to move on with my life, etc., etc. You know, it's really cool.
I agree.
I'm going to change background music. I've been listening to this for an hour and a half. Okay. Oh, okay. Orihime and her brother lived in a home filled with abuse. Her parents wouldn't feed her and beat her whenever she cried. Oh, okay, maybe... Is that what you were talking about how they censored it? Because all they said in the anime was, like, their parents left them. So, like, you could assume that they were abusive as well. Because, like, seriously, who leaves an 18-year-old and a 5-year-old alone? Or whatever their ages were. But, yeah, so I think, like, right off the bat, she has interesting character development. But then, like, even later, like, during, the Grand Fisher, like, arc, she, like, Tatsuki tells, Orihime, like, what happened with Ichigo's mom, and she kind of, like, sympathizes with them, because, like, you know, she's in the same boat about how, you know, a close family member died, and it was kind of their fault. Not really their fault. For Orihime, she was just, like, she just feels guilty because, like, she got into a big argument with her brother before he left and died. Where Ichigo is, like, his actions were responsible for his mother's death in a way. Yeah. But, yeah, I like the part in, I think the episode's, like, Memories in the Rain. Memories of the Rain? Memories in the Rain? Whatever, you get the idea. Great arc, very cool, but... I don't got something to say about Grand Fisher. You weren't here for the earlier Grand Fisher. Anyway, what were we saying? Yeah, she sympathizes.
Orihime.
Yeah, Orihime. She, like, sympathizes with Ichigo, and then she also, like, talks about wanting to get to know him better, because she's like, oh yeah, you know, I feel like, you know, like, because they're, like, they know each other, like, I think they only know each other, like, through Tatsuki before the series starts. But, like, you know, Orihime, takes an interest in Ichigo, and she wants to work better to, understand him. And like that's kind of like that becomes like more part of her character, is like this kind of like separation between her and Ichigo. But you can kind of feel in this first arc too, because like, you know, Orihime wants to get close to Ichigo, but like, you know, Ichigo's off literally in his own world, you know, like he's a Soul Reaper fighting hollows and stuff like that. So, and Orihime doesn't like get her hollow fighting powers until like near the end of this arc. But yeah, that will be more of a thing that I can talk about later on, because that becomes more of a like major character arc for her later on, about like, you know, the difference between her and Ichigo's powers and like the different worlds that they're in. So all I'm saying is Orihime, I think, is a slept on character. She gets too much hate, but apparently none here, because we all agree Orihime is a good character.
I do think, and maybe the fillers will correct me, I don't know if she shows up in filler arcs a lot, but maybe she gets more screen time there, because I do think in the longest arc to date, right? I believe the arc after the next is the longest. We don't get much of her. Yeah. Are we allowed to say arc names? No spoilers? Okay.
Sure, we can say arc names.
Okay. It's not like that's a spoiler. Anyway, the Aranka arc, I think that is a bad arc for Orihime specifically, because she is.
We can talk about that when the time comes. Because
I do like her in this initial episodes.
Yeah, she doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, but I do like what she does there. But we can talk about that later. Also, talking about things that happen to Orihime later, her design. Listen, everybody's kind of character design changes throughout the series, but like Orihime, I think changes like the most out of like.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
Cast. Like, I don't know what it is about her specifically, but like going back to these episodes after off of the heels of like the 1,000-Year Blood War, like it is shocking like how everybody looks different again, but like Orihime more than everyone. Like, I don't know what exactly it is about her that she just goes for a lot of different character iterations.
I think it's funny. I think Orihime as a character kind of like shows Tide Kubo's art style like evolution the most.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was going for.
I'm not even sure if Tide Kubo was trying to specifically make her look different as the series progressed. I think just as her, or as his talent as an artist grew, she just changed naturally, her design.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think a lot of like especially manga readers like this first arc the best because it's like the most stylized. But I kind of disagree. Like, yes, it like the earlier episodes have a unique like flair to them, but like the later episodes are also really good too. You know, like you keep like the style of this show, the character designs do not go down. If anything, the character designs just keep getting better.
I definitely agree. I don't know if you want to talk about animation yet. Should I go on a rant about that or no?
We can talk about animation.
Yeah, I'm not impressed with these first 17 episodes. I was pretty sure going into it, I'm like, yeah, I remember these not being like anything impressive, and then going back to it, yeah, no, I don't think the show looks bad at all. It definitely doesn't look bad, but it is definitely Bleach is one of those shows that gets much better as it progresses. You know, like there's no crazy big Sakuga fight in the first 13 episodes, and I think unironically, I think there should be at least one major animation set piece in your first 13 episodes, because that is a anime season, right? I think there should be something there.
Yeah, I mean, I do 100% agree that the first season, like, we don't get any like thing that looks good until like, you know, the end of like until like 60 something, and that's like a problem. And I do remember that, but I will have to say that like not the animation, yes, was not very good, but I think that like the directing and composition was like pretty good. There's still like a lot of like there's not a lot of like memorable pieces of animation, but there are a lot of like memorable like imagery. You know, like Ichigo standing there after he first gets his Soul Reaper powers.
Oh yeah, I think the storyboarding is strong, and also, mind you, I don't think any of us have watched like actual Japanese TV rips of the original Bleach show, so I don't know how much they changed from going from TV to DVD. You know, like how modern anime is from TV to Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like very few, if any, like animation errors. The show just looks solid. Like everyone's on model. Like it's not like Ichigo ever like looks cross-eyed or like his face looks off in a distance. Like the show does a good job at making everyone on model, like pretty much all the time.
Yeah, I think you could definitely see that like they were just trying to get like their foot in the door, like trying to figure out like, I don't know, because Bleach was like at the time like an ongoing series, so like it was just going week by week.
Mm-hmm.
So like for that, like people like, especially in the early days, like that, I think another thing is to recognize like the time period that it was made
Absolutely.
Because
Sakuga was not present for like 200 long episode shows back then, like in 2003, 2006. That was not a
yeah. But I also argue that just a lot of shows in the early 2000s looked bad because like there was a rough transition like between
digital,
like cell after like people transitioned off of cell shading. Like a lot of early digital anime looks really like stilted and janky.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. That's why I think it's kind of a shame when Bleach came out. I feel the same way about Naruto, early Naruto as well. Because also Naruto falls into a similar trap where there's not really any Naruto Sakuga until like 30 episodes in.
Yeah, until like the Zabuza fight.
Exactly, yeah. The Zabuza fight was where like first introduced that kind of stuff. And okay, just a lot of anime back then didn't get to like look as good as like a modern anime nowadays, you know. And that's not a time period thing necessarily because we got better. It's just digital animation back then was a bit janky.
People disagree with you in the chat. They think early art Naruto looks good. I think, like, again...
show me the first episode of Naruto.
I think it's in the same boat as, like, early Bleach, where, like, the storyboard and, like, visuals are very nice, but it doesn't move.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. There's a lot of still frames. Early Naruto has a lot of... It's the same thing with Bleach. These are both shows that came out in, like, the early 2000s, and there's just no movement. There is no movement. There is when Kakashi and Zabuza fight. There's, like, crazy... I rewatched Naruto very recently, so I promise me I know what I'm talking about.
He knows.
So, like, there are Sakuga moments, but not till about episode, I want to say, like, 26. It is far into the end. It's literally the end of the first arc.
Naruto's hair looks like a bunch of triangles. And later, okay, that's interesting. But yeah, again, I definitely noticed the drop in animation, because again, I just finished the first season of 1,000 Year Blood War and then go straight to this. I'm like, oh, this is definitely not made, and this was definitely made 20 years ago. Was it really 20 years? Yeah, 2004 it'd be like 19 years ago. That's crazy.
That is crazy.
Anyway, but yeah, that is a thing that gets better later, you know, as they get more comfortable with like digital animation and the team gets better. Like, there's a lot of like good moments. That's another reason why I wanted to watch the later filler arcs, because the later filler arcs have some really good like Sakuga in them.
Yeah, that's why I'm in, because I keep seeing this GIF. I won't explain it. I'll just say there's a green-haired character in it.
I know which one. I think I've sent you that.
Yeah, you did, and I was like, man, where is this from? I missed it completely, and it's from filler. And I'm like, man, I have to assume the other filler arcs, not including Bound. Although apparently Bound might have some Sakuga in this last fight. I'm not sure. I might have to look into that later. I'm not sure.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely like, even like, I think directly after the Bound arc, like things get a lot like more upscaled. Like, I remember there being some, like, interesting Sakuga, like, the very beginning of the Rankar arc. And also at the very end of the, there's some bits and pieces in, the Soul Society arc that are also cool. Another thing that kind of threw me off about Bleach, going back to it, is that it's not in widescreen. And it stays not in widescreen for a very long time.
Bleach's widescreen is actually, or lack of widescreen rather, is very, very, very funny to me.
Because, like, I don't know, I guess, like, again, early TV, like, everything was made for, like, CRTs and whatnot. But, like, I'm gonna look it up. Because it was, like, very late. It was, like, all the other TV anime was using widescreen by the time. 2010 was the first widescreen. Oh wait, no. 2008. 2008 was the first widescreen. I feel like by 2008 everyone was using widescreen.
Yeah, around then. That basically when HDMI was like normalized, like with PS3 and Xbox and all that.
Yummy's 2000 aspect ratios with crusty yellow subtitles. Oh yes. Take me back. Take me back. Mostly why I enjoyed Cardcaptor Sakura. Although Cardcaptor Sakura like is more of not a digital anime. It was on cells, but yeah. So not comparable, but you get the idea. But yeah, for reference, I think that's episode 220? No, not 220. 267 is the last 4x3 episode. Which is really funny that they started using widescreen, starting with a filler arc. Like there was canon material 4x3, and then like a 20 episode filler arc that used widescreen, and then you had to wait. You had to wait like a year. Anyway, not important right now. I am prepared to consume juicy squared aspect ratio. If you're not watching Bleach on a CRT for a composite cable, then what are you even doing with your life? Anyway. we talked, is there anything about the characters that you wanted to say?
No, I pretty much said all my thoughts on all the characters.
Okay, I was going to talk about Byakuya and Renji, but that goes into the next topic, the final fights. Which, I don't know, I have comparably less notes, but I still think it's notable to talk about, like the last fight that takes place. I've talked about Rukia, we talked about Rukia, about how, like, a lot of people like Rukia, and I'm a decent fan of Rukia. There's a VOD, don't worry, Tevin. I might actually timestamp this VOD, so don't worry about it. Anyway, the final fight, you know how, like, the whole series, Ichigo is like kind of hot-headed, and you know he kind of wins most of his battles because he has resolve and he kind of gets lucky and whatnot, you know. Well, if it isn't the consequences of my actions is all I could think about when I was watching that last fight. Because like, yeah, definitely Ichigo, like he was able to beat Grand Fisher and the Menos Grande just because he kind of got lucky. But that is not true for what happened here. Because like he actually runs into people who know what they're doing and are ready to take him down.
Yeah, so I'm usually not someone who, because I feel like for a lot of shonen anime, people really want to see the main character lose, because that is like a storytelling way of showing like some kind of like tension, like, oh, Ichigo is able to lose now. And I usually don't really care for stuff like that. But I do think after these early introduction episodes where Ichigo really does beat a lot of these guys in a lot of fights. And I wouldn't say like he does it effortlessly, but like it's Monster Week formula, so you know he's not really going to lose in any of these, right? Yeah.
And
so
again, I think sorry, go on.
No, you.
I was going to say, I think the show does a good job of like, yeah, he doesn't lose, but he doesn't necessarily win. Right? Like... A lot of his fights, like the first hollow, like okay, I think he just kind of caught it by surprise. The second hollow, he didn't even fight. Like Orihime's brother was like just too strong for him, and it was Orihime that kind of got through to him, and he was able to like regain his senses enough to like off himself. And then
that is something I like about that stuff, is that Ichigo is not like the sole winner, right? It's always kind of it is a friendship, teamwork type deal for a lot of these episodes and how he wins.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, going for the fights, like Ichigo, Sora, like Orihime kind of is responsible for that victory, and then the next one, like Chad kind of weakens it down a lot before Ichigo even gets to him. And then yeah, like Chad like figured it out, like it reveals like what his powers are and whatnot. And then like the Menos Grande like was kind of like luck, because like Uryu was also helping, but also just like he just so happened to like his power levels like spiked because his power levels were like fluctuating, and then he just happened to, you know, injure it enough for it to retreat, and then he almost died, and then Uryu saved him because he couldn't control it, like Ichigo couldn't control his powers. That's when we made the joke about him squirting blood. Yeah, so like Ichigo unlocks a spoiler move. Oh yeah, I think you're right. Where like how it is portrayed in the anime, the Menos Grande gets a large blue like gash cut through it. So like I don't know if that was like in the manga or if that's just a thing the anime decided to do, if that's a coincidence or if that's foreshadowing. I have no idea. Thoughts, Azerad?
I'm not really good with these. I don't want to call it like a retcon or whatever, but I'm not sure. I feel like
again,
the manga there was no color, right? So they just kind of did whatever.
Especially when we get to Thousand Year Blood War, we'll have to. The question will be brought up: what is a retcon and what is we planned it the whole time? Does it even matter?
Mm-hmm.
I like watching my shonen characters get their ass kicked. Welcome to my TED Talk of why Kurko's basketball is higher art. Sounds like an actual thing. Yeah, I don't know, man. I might look that up between next time. But anyway, as far as the final fight goes, like, yeah, Ichigo stops getting lucky, you know? Like, he's able to, like again, like, his power, he can't control his power, so it, like, fluctuates a lot. So, like, he's able to, like, defend by chance. He gets lucky and is able to defend himself against Renji, but that doesn't last for very long.
Yeah, no, I genuinely really like that scene a lot. I remember when I first saw it way back.
Chad would have won.
Chad would have probably won.
Unironically? Sorry, go on.
No, yeah, I remember when I first finished it, I kept going next episode because I do think they do a good job setting up the fact that if Ichigo loses to something from those first 17 episodes, if going forward you see Ichigo get fucked up, you're like, oh shit, this is serious, because of how they kind of set up Ichigo as a character to be very capable.
Yeah, because again, earlier, like, he borrowed his powers, but, like, everyone's like, oh my god, he has a giant sword, and that means he's very powerful, and, like, you know, he doesn't know how to use his powers, and he's very hot-headed, but everyone talks about how, like, oh wow, his powers, like, you know, his power level fluctuate, for lack of a better term.
I really can't wait till our next session, because there's some stuff that shows up immediately a few episodes after episode 17. Like, I want to say like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so, but yeah, back to the final fight, like, I gotta say, I forgot these characters are at 15. Don't worry about that one. Anyway, about the final fight, I really like on the rewatch, like, in contrast to what we see later, like, I really like how Renji and Byakuya are kind of portrayed as, like, evil and villainous.
Renji looks like a villain. I still don't think he looks like a protagonist, like a side, like an anti-hero. I just think he looks like a bad guy.
But yeah, not spoiling anything of what happens, but, like, yeah, we do learn more about these characters and, like, why they were acting, like, we'll learn that, like, why they were acting in this way was kind of an exception. But yeah, I like how they were just, it just really caught me off guard, like, oh yeah, they were just evil and really, like, sadistic and wanting to kill Rukia. And so, like, knowing how they are later is very, like, it was surprising. I think Chad could have taken down Renji, but I don't know about Byakuya. He's just Snake. But yeah, the fight was very good at, like, humbling Ichigo, because, like, again, like, they tell him throughout the entire series, like, oh, you're hot-headed, you don't go into battle with any strategy. But, like, Renji's like, oh, what, you didn't even ask your Zanpakuto its name, and Ichigo's like, what the hell are you talking about? You guys run around naming your Zanpakutos? What the hell are you guys talking about? And, like, yeah, so, like, he wasn't even aware that that was an option. Like, he wasn't even aware that that was a mechanic. Which, by the way, why didn't Rukia say anything about this?
There's a lot of things Ichigo learns as he goes, and to the viewers, it's always a question of, why didn't Rukia say this?
Rukia could have said this. Rukia could have said, hey, I don't know, maybe Rukia was just thinking like, oh, because throughout the series, like, Rukia's like, oh, don't get involved, don't get hurt, blah, 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 this is my fault. I wasn't strong enough to protect Ichigo, so I don't want him, you know, dying, and blah, blah, blah. So maybe Rukia just didn't want him to fight, and that's why she didn't say, like, oh, by the way, your Zanpakuto has a name. So, I don't know, man. But, this fight in general was, like, I think a really good example. You remember earlier I was talking about how, like, a lot of the fights are not necessarily, like, feats of strength, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think this is a good example of that, because, like, the main goal of this fight was not necessarily to, you know, have a cool fight between two equals. It was to humble Ichigo. You know, like, despite the, like, to show the fact that, like, oh yeah, he has all this power, he just doesn't know how to use it, you know? That was the only reason Renji released his Zanpakuto. Because, like, you know, again, it kind of could seem like, oh yeah, Renji was losing and then he released his Zanpakuto and he was winning and blah, blah, blah. But, like, no, like, the only reason that Renji used his Zanpakuto ability was because he just wanted to show Ichigo how bad he was. You know, kind of more talking about, like, you know, fights are kind of like tests of character more than anything else. So Renji was like, I know more about Zanpakuto than you. I'm more spiritually aware. You know, I'm more spiritually connected. And that's why I'm stronger than you. That kind of sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I also think the fight, while also, like, showing a little bit more, like, cool stuff with the characters and humbling Ichigo, I think it also does a really good job of, like, doing minor world building with the Soul Reapers, right? Because in the Grand Fisher fight, we see another Soul Reaper, and we get, like, a little bit of, like, exposition on how Soul Reaper shit works and all that stuff.
Yeah, he was
Plus,
like,
Rukia kind of tells every now and then.
yeah, he was like part of like a certain type of squad or something. Like, it's a very organized society.
Mm-hmm. But when Renji and Byakuya show up, and specifically when Renji shows his Zanpakuto, this is like when Soul Reapers, like, kind of get, like, a whole, like, thing blown out where it's like, whoa, they can have, like, swords that have names and they can transform.
Yeah.
And, like, now the possibilities are like, oh, does Rukia have one? What does hers look like? Can Ichigo get a regular one, or is him going to stay like a dumb sword and not ask it? Like, there's so many more questions that get asked from the viewer.
Yeah, there's a question of, like, oh, does the series jump the shark and just turn into, like, power transformation and you will get more powerful? Like, no, it's not Dragon Ball, like, super form. It's not like, oh, you just get a super form and you're stronger than your opponent, you know? Like, again, the reason that, like, Renji has that power and Ichigo doesn't is because Renji is more spiritually aware, you know, more developed as a character, and, like, knows is more connected to his Zanpakuto, and Ichigo isn't, you know? So it's not necessarily that, like, oh, he has a power-up that Ichigo doesn't, and that's why he won. It's like, why doesn't Ichigo have that power-up? You get what I mean?
I do.
I'm just trying to, like, again, I'm not necessarily going to change the entire discourse of Bleach Online with this 3-viewer stream, but I do want to just talk about, you know, the fact that, like, a lot of people, like, fundamentally misunderstand this series. And that's mostly why it gets hate, and that's the only reason. I mean, listen, show has flaws. No show's perfect. But I think it gets a lot of hate that it doesn't deserve, just because, like, people are, like, just don't understand, you know? And I think this fight and the Zanpakuto in general are a very good example of, like, yeah, it's not just, like, a matter of, like, having powers. It's a matter of, like, why do you have that power, and, like, what do you do to get it, you know?
Yeah.
Which we'll see in the next arc, where, you know, the training arc.
I'm very excited to talk about the next arc, because there is a lot of world building stuff that I think is cool. And honestly, there are things even from this arc that shown that, yes, Bleach does have, like, a kind of interesting problem of, like, wondering, what is a retcon, what was thought of from the start, all that. But I think a lot of things in terms of the world building with Soul Reapers is mostly planned. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
And he really does stick to the plan. I won't get into it this time, but next time I have to write down my own notes.
Yeah, again, feel free to say as much or as little as you want. But yeah, again, you were saying, yeah, there gets a lot of like development, a lot of like the series definitely like escalates a lot after this point, because up till this point it's just been like, you know, Ichigo and Rukia and Pal hanging around in the world and killing hollows. But like now we're gonna but then, you know, moving on to the next arc, we're gonna get introduced to like basically the rest of the universe. You know, like we've seen only like 1% of what this show has. What the fudge you talking about, Biffy? I personally think every week we should kidnap a My Hero fan that doesn't respect why Bleach was the big three and Clockwork Orange into watching Bound. Yeah, it was just the Bound arc that why mostly people hate Bleach. And also the
I think that's gonna make them not like Bleach.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Anyway, but going back to this fight, the only reason that Ichigo almost like, because then Ichigo almost beat Renji by accident because that thing happened again where like his power fluctuated and he got a power boost, but like he couldn't control it. It was just random fluctuation. So like it was mostly like luck, which is what let him do that. But like even doing that, he still lost, you know? Like this big like protagonist like plot armor, like the series has portrayed like him going like his power fluctuating and showing off a lot of like spirit energy as like kind of like form of plot armor, like it happened in the Menos Grande fight and stuff. But then like it showed this fight was important in showing that like, oh yeah, that isn't plot armor, like because people can just break it anyway, you know, like he had the plot armor and he still lost. Ichigo unleashed his blue eyes white dragon and he still lost. But yeah, I think that's a pretty cool thing that the show does, and I think that happens a couple of times later on, where like, oh, you think that this is just like, you know, a insta win button with plot armor, but like no, actually it's not. Again, no spoilers, but yeah, that happens several times throughout the show, and I think it's cool. Also, just showing off the difference between Renji and Byakuya, because they're obviously setting up Renji to be like a like a rival, because they're doing like the rival like story tropes of like, oh, I'm much stronger than you, and I know this cool technique that you don't know, and then the arc is gonna be like the other character learning the technique and getting better and beating that guy. So they're obviously setting up Renji as a rival, but then, you know, Byakuya, like, Ichigo is able to like defend himself against Renji. Like Renji is just overpowering him, but when Byakuya steps in, like he just instant dies. He just gets critted. Oh, yeah. He just gets basically critted and dies.
I think Tide Kubo does a really interesting thing with his characters every single arc, where when he really wants to make it, like he is not afraid to make a character like an antagonist just be overwhelmingly strong.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if someone wants to backhand Ichigo, it'll happen. He's not afraid of it.
Yeah, and again, like, later on as the show goes on, you kind of run into a power creep problem, but I don't think it's much of a problem. Again, most of the, you know, power differences between characters are more of a spiritual difference as opposed to a raw power difference. So, you know, and Ichigo keeps developing in different ways. It's not just Ichigo gets more and more powerful as the series goes on. It's more or less like Ichigo starts developing different aspects of his character as he continues to go on, and that's what gives him powers. I really like Ichigo's powers, and later we get on. I'm looking forward to saying things that happen later in the series. But like already, like Ichigo has pretty interesting powers just straight off the bat. Where like he has Summonate powers, but also he borrowed them from Rukia. And then he doesn't know really how to control his powers, and then he just dies and loses his powers. They did establish that in the end of episode 17, right? I'm pretty sure. Where they're like, oh yeah, no, they did. They definitely did. They're like, oh yeah, if he doesn't die from this, then he even if he does live, he won't even have his Soul Reaper powers anymore. So they do talk about that. So yeah, I think Ichigo's cool. Also, yes, Byakuya has roof tiles in his hair. I remember when the trailer for 1,000 Year Blood War came out, and people saw Byakuya's design. They were mad because like he doesn't got roof tiles anymore. They broke his whatever. Can we just talk? Listen, going back to this this show having flaws and not being perfect. That is like a technique that Soul Reapers can do. Is they can just what Byakuya did. I don't think they ever explain it. But basically, what Byakuya did is. No, I think they did explain it. ADHD. What Byakuya did. Just imagining you with a very judgmental look on your face as you quietly listen to me ramble.
That's what's happening.
Thought he was gonna be like, no, buddy, that would never. No, he's doing it. Anyway, so Byakuya explains like, oh yes, I did a technique to cut his like soul chain and like reishi or whatever the F. He basically cut him in two spots, two very specific points at the same time, and that like basically took away all of his Soul Reaper powers. That never happens again. Like that's apparently a thing that Soul Reapers can do, and there are like other bad Soul Reapers later in the series, and they just don't do that.
They don't know how. They just never learned.
I think they do know. They just don't do it. They just don't do it. Listen, a lot of the times, like, there's not a lot of times where two Soul Reapers are fighting and they could do that move. But there are a few times where, like, why don't you just do that move to take away their Soul Reaper powers? Why don't you just do that? Why don't you just do that? Maybe the implication is that you have to be a certain amount of... It's a captain level technique. I think the implication is that you have to... I think the only reason that it was able to work against Ichigo is because Byakuya was just that much faster. So I think later opponents, like... I think, like, later in... Like, I don't think Byakuya could do it to another captain, because I think they could... equal him in terms of speed? I have no idea. I'm sure there's some BS reason it never gets used again.
Explain in the light novels.
Explained in the light novels. You say that as a joke, but I'm pretty sure the only other time that they use it is in a random light novel.
Of course.
Which I'm really mad because there's a bunch of like Bleach light novels that expand the lore and whatnot that weren't like written by Taidakuba, but were like overseen by him, so they're like basically canon. But they are not. They don't. We don't. If you don't read Japanese, then it's your SOL. Because they are like they did publish a couple of them in English, but like not in order, you know. Like they're current. Like they published in English like the novel that takes place after 1,000 Year Blood War, but not in like during the initial time skip. Whatever. Don't want to get into spoilers, but it's dumb. Again, light novels aren't like hardcore canon. They're not like required to understand the series, but still it'd be nice. I think the last thing I wanted to say about this final fight was a parallel I don't think they made super clear in the series itself. But I think that this is what they were going for, is the parallel between Ichigo's mom and Rukia, because like they're kind of in the same boat where like his mom died trying to protect him, like she died from a hollow, and then similarly like at the end of this fight, like Rukia is like, okay, you know, leave Ichigo there, you know, I'm ready to be murdered, I'm not gonna run away anymore, and she basically goes off to her death, you know. So she basically does the same thing Ichigo's mom did, which was sacrifice her life in order to save Ichigo, right?
I never thought of it like that, but yeah, that might actually be intended, because it is right very closely after Grand Fisher.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I wonder how intended that is.
I don't know. Again, I think some non-canon stuff made that connection, but I don't know if it was a intentional canon connection. But yeah, there's some non-canon Bleach stuff that made that connection, that made me realize that. So I'm not super smart, but Yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily an intentional connection, but I think that it makes sense because, like, you know, going forward, Ichigo is like really determined to, you know, go through a lot of shit to protect Rukia. So, like, I think, like, his main motivation for saving Rukia is to not let what happened to Rukia, what happened to his mom, happen to Rukia.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Also, again, Ichigo, like, because again, Ichigo said, like, oh, I'm not gonna just risk my life for a random stranger. So, like, he wouldn't do that if just anyone was kidnapped. If there was, like, a random princess that was kidnapped, Ichigo would not give a singular F. But because it was Rukia, because, you know, twice, actually, both in episode 1 and in this final fight, Rukia kind of, like, you know, sacrificed herself to protect Ichigo. And so, you know, Ichigo wants to do the favor. So I think that's a really cool arc that kind of like gives more context into why Ichigo is so dead set on saving his I never thought about that before, as he risks his life for a random stranger. He doesn't, though. He kind of does a little bit. It's a little ill-defined, but he doesn't go out of his way to save random people, but if somebody's in front of him, then he will go save them, even if he doesn't necessarily know them. But most of the reason, you know, he's gonna risk his life to go save Rukia, to try to save Rukia, I don't know if he does, is because...
Who knows? Tune in.
Who knows? But the reason he's gonna go try anyway is because, you know, what Rukia did, you know, and the thing about him feeling responsible for his mom, etc., etc., etc. So that's cool. Anything you want to say about the final fight?
No, I think I got all my feelings out there. Okay.
We're almost done. We're at 2 hours.
I don't know how much longer I can. I'm not a stream monster like you. I don't have the endurance.
I don't have the endurance either. Well, we're just gonna we should be wrapping up soonish because the only thing I have is miscellaneous, and we talked a lot about other miscellaneous things throughout here. Like Soul Society is a metaphor for like the adult world that will become more relevant later.
Mm-hmm.
Something else that's not super relevant now, but I thought I would mention it, is how the series like handles death. Because death is like, you know, being about soul reapers and death gods and blah blah blah. The series does have a lot of death in it, and I think they handle it very like, it's interesting the way that they handle it. Because already we have both Ichigo and Orihime, you know, feeling responsible for a death and, you know, kind of carrying that burden. And then also they have Rukia, who's implied to go through something similar. We don't have the full details of that yet, but, you know, somebody died fighting for honor. That's all we have for now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does make sense just overall with the setting of the series, right, with Soul Reapers and the such. So yeah.
Yeah, do you think the show does really well with using its setting? Because again, what I was talking about earlier about how like all the fights are spiritual and the people who are fighting are inherently spiritual. And yeah, the way the show handles death is great, especially with Grand Fisher. Remember that you're the man whom the woman I love died protecting. Yeah. That's something that Ichigo's dad says to him after he finishes fighting Grand Fisher. To be like, hey, you know, your mom was a great person and you should value your life more and blah blah blah. So yeah, again, we'll get more into that the later we get into the series. I just wanted to bring it up. Also, another question. I think we also talked about this earlier. How did... Okay, so like when Ichigo turns into a Soul Reaper, he just knows how to use a sword. Why does he know how to use a sword? Did Rukia teach him off screen? Does he like... Because he does like actual like, you know, like sword moves. And we don't have any real explanation for that. Like...
I mean, wait. There might be an explanation. So I'd have to look it up. I think Ichigo did do martial arts classes.
He did kickboxing with Tatsuki. Is that what you're talking about?
But if he did, I think, now mind you, this is me inferring and trying to explain something that was not stated. But given how it's Japan and they have kendo classes, and clearly Ichigo seemed to have an interest in martial arts at some point, he might have taken up a kendo course or two. I'm not sure.
That's my only guess.
That's probably the closest. Or, hey, it's swinging a sword.
He just kind of
Gravity does
swings
most of the
his
work.
sword. He does have a big sword, so he doesn't necessarily need to, like, have a lot of, like... He just needs to lift it in the air and let it drop. most of what he does.
Pretty much.
But still, I don't know. Again, I just mostly noting it because some non-canon materials try to explain that a little bit.
Interesting.
The sentence feels confusing. Remember, you're the man who the woman I love died protecting. So he was saying because the woman I loved died protecting you, that must make you like a pretty important person, right? Anyway, yeah, I think the way that Biffy quoted it might be wrong, but I don't know. I could be crazy. Japanese has a lot of really complex sentences that don't translate to English very well. Also talking about the anime in general. We were talking about the animation earlier, but also we have to put it word for word the subtitles. Yeah, that might be Japan. Anyway, more I learn Japanese, the more like I dislike subtitles. Because like as I'm watching it, I don't know if there's anyone else who knows Japanese and English does this, but like sometimes when I'm watching an anime subtitled, I like when I read a subtitle that I know is wrong, like I fix it in my head, because I heard it in the audio, and half because like I know grammar better than you dumb subtitlers.
Owned.
Although in subtitlers' defense, they are not given a lot of resources to translate things.
Or time. Sometimes they're very pressed on time.
Yeah, that's what I meant by like resources.
Nice.
Like sometimes they won't like for like things that are like simulcasted. I can't speak.
Yes.
Things where it's released in English-speaking countries like the same day it airs in Japan. Like all they have to work with is they just have like a script of a transcript of the episode, and they just gotta translate that without really any context of what the hell the episode is about. He's saying that he can never have hatred towards Ichigo because his wife died protecting him. If he is more important to her than her own life, and he's important to the father, yeah. That's a good line. Listen, I agree. You know what? For once in Biffy's life, he is right. I do like that exchange between Ichigo and his dad at the end. Anyway, moving on. What were we saying?
Well, I just want to say something. I don't remember what we were saying exactly, but I think probably my last comment that I'm able to make consciously is I really like the opening.
Oh
this
yeah,
first opening is one of my favorites.
You know what? That's weird that you mentioned it because my next note is about how great the soundtrack is.
Oh, great.
Because like, yeah, the soundtrack is good. Bleach has like some of the best like openings like in all of anime. Like, it might be nostalgia for me. But again, Azerad agrees, and he's seen that more recently than I have.
Yeah, I do think Bleach has some amazing openings.
Yeah. As we skip some filler episodes, I at least recommend looking at the openings. Because some of the openings are really good. That's the only good part about the Bount arc, is that it has a banger opening. That opening, yummy, yummy. That opening has ruined my taste in anything ever yet. It's very unique. I think I still think overall, like, it's relatively low on my like tier list of openings, but it's still like a really great song, and it's very like unique and catchy and makes the show stand out. You know, like they have like a bunch of like everybody's got drip, and there's like a rap going over it. It's really great.
In my head, the opening is one of my like. It's what I wish Bleach actually stylized was like. It's never like this. Like, Tite Kubo loves drawing like promotional art where the characters kind of dress like that occasionally.
I was gonna say
in a lot of the main story beats. No, Ichigo is consistently wearing his Soul Reaper uniform. All the characters are wearing very basic clothes, either their school uniforms or like a t-shirt.
Yeah, I think that's just mostly like, yeah, no, I think that there's like a little bit of a balance because like the reason that a lot of anime and manga use uniforms outside of, Japan has uniforms, so why not use uniforms in Japan anime? But I think a lot of that is just like it's easy to draw, It's just
for sure.
It's a more of a time-saving thing. But
for sure.
But yeah, I don't know. There's still some times where like, they have interesting outfits. Like yeah, like anytime like during like the Grand Fisher arc, like Ichigo had like some drip on that. Like he had like a very like I forget exactly what it was. It looked like a multi-layered like shirt, and it had like English lettering on it, and it looked stylish. But yeah, compare like so the main series does have that a little bit, but like yeah, definitely like the promotional material and like the openings like definitely showcase like again Tite Kubo likes designing characters. I think I could be misremembering this, but I remember that hearing like in an interview that before he made manga, he just wanted to be like a fashion designer, or just like most of his doodles pre-mangaka was just different styles of fashion. So he likes fashion. Tite Kubo is a fashion enjoyer. Which episode has Ichigo wearing a really small shirt? I don't remember what episode it is, but I do remember him wearing a shirt where like you could see like he had like a midriff or something. It's really funny. But yeah, the openings are really great. They're all very stylized, very nice. It's nice. Even if we can't get like cool outfits in the main series, it's very nice that we get to at least see some of this for like promotional material and like openings, and it's really sick.
Definitely agree.
It's just very stylized. I think future openings will be there are some openings that are like more like straightforward, like here are things that happen in the arc. But like this first opening is just like none of that crap that happened in the opening happened in the actual show. Like there was like time where they were like graffitiing a wall, like Ichigo like fighting a bunch of different Soul Reapers in a random field. Like that never happened. So I don't know, it's funny. But yeah, also in addition to the openings and endings being very good, and yeah, the ending is great. Nobody knows who I really am. That shit good. You know that one?
Yeah.
I never felt this empty before. I'm done. Please force me to stop.
I'm gonna drop dead soon, so let's wrap it up.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. Impressively tone deaf. I'm listening to another song while also trying to sing a different song. It makes it difficult. But anyway, yeah, the OST is great. To try to wrap this up, so before Azerad dies and passes on to the other world and becomes a Soul Reaper or whatever. That sounds cool. Can I join you?
Sure.
Anyway, the OST is great. Ichigo's main theme is fantastic. Number one, you got the effing guitar riffs, and there's like, now you feel like number one. That shit great. Also, that's the sad song, Nothing Can Be Explained. That's perfect. That's mostly what made
it is iconic.
Yeah, it's listen, I don't want to spam the word iconic, but Ichigo's main fight theme, iconic. That sad rain song, iconic. And also just the rest of the soundtrack is very nice too. And it also goes for like different styles for like the different arcs. It's so sick. Anyway, other random comments. I like the series episode cards, like when they have like they show like the number of the episode, it's like super stylized.
Oh yeah, I do love that. I'm glad you brought that up. I totally forgot about that. It's actually one of my favorites.
Yeah. And I'm glad that they somewhat brought that back for the new anime, where they didn't bring back like the numbering, but they do have like stylistic like, title cards.
The numbering pains me a lot for something, and I won't be able to bring this up for a long, long time.
I know what you're talking about, this spoiler.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so the opening cards are good. I recommend also when we skip the fillers to just look at a list of the opening cards because they're all cool looking.
You should. Good idea.
Also, something that doesn't really matter too much. The series does have an actual like timeline. So, for example, this arc takes place between May and July of 2001. Probably just because like that's when the series released. But they do explicitly state, like, Udi is like, oh yes, I realized when you first got your Soul Reaper powers in mid-May, and Ichigo's mom's death anniversary is in June, and also the whole of the Soul Society arc takes place during Japanese summer vacation, which is in August. So the series does have an actual timeline, but it's not super important. Song that plays when in the first episode when Ruki appears, yeah, it's great. the song is the music, the OST in Bleach is great. Other random topic. Ichigo's name has a lot of puns because his name is Kurosaki Ichigo. So the kanji for Ichigo means the one who protects. We talked about that earlier. But like out loud, it can also be read as Ichigo, which is 1-5 or 15. Which is why he has like a 15 on his door, and he also starts the series when he's 15. Also, in the Japanese version, his sisters call him Ichi-Ni-san, which is really funny. Which it combines Ichigo and Ni-san, which means brother. So Ichi-Ni-san, but also Ichi-Ni-san is Japanese for 1, 2, 3. So they call him 1, 2, 3 for Ichi-Ni-san. So that's funny.
I learned a lot today.
Yeah, there you go. Japanese for 1, 2, 3 is Ichi-Ni-san. His birthday is... Oh yeah, his birthday is also on June 15th. That's funny. Oh yeah, Ichigo can also be read as strawberry. It's just a homonym? What's that word that pronounced the same but means different things?
It's either a homonym or a synonym. One of those two.
I don't think it's a synonym. I think it's a homonym. Anyway, that's why... Ichigo in Japanese is also strawberry, so that's why they also call him, like, the Death Strawberry sometimes. Yeah, I already talked about the Bleach is a magical girl show. Also, I think we were talking about this before the stream. They mentioned hell, like, during the arc where, where they kill the serial killer Hollow. They're like, yeah, bad hollows go to hell, and they're like, hell is real, and then he goes to hell, and then like this big giant, like these gates open up that are like have covered in skulls, and it opens up, like chains rattling around, like echoes of hell, and then the giant skeleton man comes and stabs him in the chest and drags him into hell, and then they never talk about it ever again. Called the Netherworld. Are you sure? In the English version, they just call it hell. But yeah, they never hell. Spoiler, I guess, but they never mention hell ever again, outside of like a non-canon movie and like I think I'm not sure. I don't know. There's some like the most recent chapter that may not even be a chapter. I don't know. I think they also bring hell in that. Fake weeb watching the dub. I've watched both. Does that make it feel better? Listen, my Johnny on Bosch, being a Johnny on Bosch stand, outclasses my weebdom, I'm sorry. Also, I like how Rain is used in the series. Again, we'll get more into that later, but, Rain is sad. I mean, that's used in a lot of different media, but in Bleach they take it like really far. Like it rains when Grand Fisher is fighting, and Orihime talks about rain connecting the heaven and earth and whatnot. And also rain is used more later, so we'll talk more about that later. Yeah, don't worry. Somebody goes to hell in one of the movies. Don't worry about it. Anyway, also super mention for the sake of completeness, and also I was curious. I also watched the Memories in the Rain OVA, which was basically like a pilot episode for Bleach. that was released sometime after the anime came out, but it was like made before, I think. It's basically just the pilot episode for Bleach. It condenses the 2 Grand Fisher episodes into one 30-minute short. And most of the footage is the same as like the main anime, but like there are a few differences worth noting. Did you actually watch that? I know you said you were interested. I
was interested. I didn't end up watching it, so hopefully I'll have something interesting to say about it next time.
Okay, but yeah, it's nothing too super interesting unless you're like a hardcore Bleach fan. That's the only reason you would want to watch it. I've never heard of that before. Yeah, it's hard to find. It was only like released in like during like a Jump Fest, I think, and also like on Japanese DVD. It never got an English localization, mostly because it is just a more condensed version of the 2 Grand Fisher episodes. It's a bit like faster paced. It's also a lot less censored. Like there's a lot more like compared to like even like the shots that are like the 1-for-1 from the anime and the pilot episode. Like there's a lot more blood. Just because I don't know, they didn't have to worry about it being on TV. I guess I don't know. It was the pilot episode. Yeah,
it's a DVD, so.
But again, yeah, the main series is more censored, has less blood. But like 1,000-Year Blood War, oh boy, they don't give a fuck about that. Also, other things like they cut that random Soul Reaper guy, like he's not in that special at all. Also like how Grand Fisher like fights Ichigo is a little different. Like at the beginning, like Grand Fisher attacks, like distracts Ichigo using like the little doll of his like mom. And then Rukia comes and protects his sisters from Grand Fisher. And also, the most notable part about the Memories in the Rain OVA is that the creator, Tadekubo, has a cameo as Cone for 2 lines. He says literally, like, I think 3 words in those 2 lines. But it's Tadekubo, and it was really funny. So in case you're ever wondering why Tadekubo is listed, if you're like in Tadekubo's like My Anime List page and you see him like, oh, voice acting roles, Cone in this one OVA, yeah, that's why. Anyway, that's it. I promise, Azerad, you can sleep now.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, I will say one more thing. The next batch of episodes, where is that? So, some quick things. The next batch of episodes will be episodes 18 to 40. You can skip 33. So that's like...
Noted.
Yeah, because 33 is like one of those like random... I mean, you can watch it if you want. It's 1 episode. But it is just a very random, non-consequential filler episode. Like, you can just skip it. So yeah, I think that's 23 episodes. So that's 23 episodes, and we will discuss that on April 29th, which is 2 weeks from now.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! So yeah, I gave everyone 3 weeks for the first one just to advertise and whatnot, but ideally we'd do like 20-ish episodes every 2 weeks. I think might be a good ratio. I think that's about as much as I can watch between like doing other things and streaming and whatnot. But yeah, we'll try to do it every other week. But I think that might get messed up at some point, because I think the 2 weeks after the 29th is the weekend Tears of the Kingdom come out, so we might move around stuff. It's a lot of episodes. You got 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks. It's 23 episodes. That's 2 weeks, like 14 days to watch 23 episodes. So like you got I think if you do 2 episodes a day, you'll be good. Right? That's not too much, right?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I'm willing to take feedback. I'm willing to take feedback on a ratio of stuff like this. For like future things. So well, I do want to do more anime discussions outside of Bleach, but so I'm willing to take feedback. But I think for Bleach, I think going a little faster than a little slower is good, because again, we have 209 episodes to watch, plus the movies, plus some filler I might include. Also, just as a reminder, this is not homework. you don't have, if you've already seen this show, if you've already seen these episodes, you can just skip it. I think Azerad has already seen these.
Yeah, I just watched like 2 episodes, and then I kind of refreshed myself with like wiki pages. I think that's good enough.
Nah, it's homework. If you want to take, if you haven't seen the show before and you want to take place in the discussion, sure, it's homework. But if you've already seen the show, just feel free to, you know, just read a Wikipedia summary just to familiarize yourself. So yeah. But coward, I'm rewatching it, everything. There you go. That's the true Bleacher. Can we call Bleach fans Bleachers?
Just like the chairs.
Just like the chair. Wait, yeah, the chairs before to study for a test. Yeah, just cram the night before. Just read the Wikipedia page for these episodes. I'm going to consume so much Bleach. Oh yeah, right into the bloodstream. Hell yeah. Disclaimer, please do not inject Bleach directly into your bloodstream or in any way, shape, or form other than visually. Anyway, so yeah, I'm very excited for this arc. Again, I think I said the same thing about Kid Icarus Uprising, but this is when the show gets good, but it's always good, and it has like a billion different points where like it gets good. But yeah, it definitely escalates. While this arc was kind of like a monster of the week, next arc is more like somewhat more traditional like shonen like anime. It's more of like one big like plot line as opposed to a bunch of different like episodic plot lines. And also we get to introduce and do like a ton more characters. And that's really like why we really get more into like why people love this show so much. Also, I got a spoiler, but it doesn't matter because also the ending also spoiled Ichigo's sword. Did you notice that?
I did not.
In the second ending, where it's like appreciation, that song.
I love Homemade Kazoku.
Wait, what?
That's the name of the band.
Oh yeah, okay. Honto arigato. Let's go. That one. That's a great song, but that ending, like, it has like one frame on screen where like Ichigo has his new sword. So whoops, spoiler.
Sorry, anime fans.
Yeah, that's not the that's not the last time this happens. I will bring it up if I remember, but like later, like on like near one of the like deep into the Arrancar arc, like there's an opening that just spoils the entire arc. Notice what I'm talking about?
I think so. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of like sword reveals during that arc, and like the opening ruins all of them. I'm going to consume chlorine while watching Bleach so that my body turns into mustard glass. Sounds like a plan. Don't recommend it, but sounds like a plan. Is the first opening spoilers the cat? I mean, there being a cat doesn't necessarily spoil anything. But like showing off Ichigo's new sword, like before we even learn that swords can have different forms, that's definitely a spoiler. But the anime's usually pretty good about it, but it still happens sometimes. Anyway, yeah, so and make sure to study for the test. You will be quizzed. And if you don't do your homework, I'm gonna spank you. So yeah, see you in 2 weeks. I think, anything you want to say, Azerad? Azerad?
No. Azerad, that is right. Thanks for having me again, and yeah, I really can't wait for next one, because next arc's great.
Yeah. Again, you can say as much or as little as possible. I just had a lot more than I thought I would to say about this arc, but hopefully now that we're past the initial like beginning of like now that we know all the characters in the world, I might have a little less to say going forward, but we'll see about that. But yeah, as you were saying, the very next episodes, like episode 18 onward, has a lot of cool stuff in it. And does a lot of like foreshadowing for future things in our argument of, is it a retcon or was it planned? Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed. I had a lot of fun. Hopefully, my rambling made some sense to somebody. I'm gonna have to send you a remix of "Thank You." Oh hell yeah, please do. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. I hope my rambling made some sort of sense. Thank you, Azerad, for joining me on this discussion. And I'll see you all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Do your homework.